Everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're starting off with Miss Tara Drop from our Finance Department.
Well, the finance department is not asking or needing anything extra on the, is that working? Anything extra in our budget this year. It will actually be less. So what I did was put together a little overview of local government finance. There's actually a PowerPoint, but Cindy's getting that put up. I just thought it would be beneficial to kind of just briefly go over some of it. It's not going to be in great detail, but just sort of some of like the limitations we have and special circumstances we have and just like challenges that we have or that we could potentially face. Okay, so the overview of it is that we're going to go over what fund balance is and kind of why we have a fund balance, what funds we have, the revenues, tax rates, and comparisons. I'm not going over anything about expenditures because we are going to go over expenditures at length over the next couple months, so I didn't put that in here. And then that's just the title. Next one. So the purposes of having a strong fund balance. The first one is cash flow. So this doesn't really affect us too much because we have a strong fund balance. But in some towns that have a low fund balance, or if our fund balance got too low, the way that revenues come in, it's like a large portion of our revenues come in from November to February. And so you have July, August, September, October, where you don't really have very much revenue coming in. And so the fund balance in towns that have a low fund balance, that's what that's for them, for the most part, is that to carry them through, because our fiscal year ends June 30th. And then you have all that time until your real revenues start coming in. So that's just one of the purposes for it. It's also to avoid short-term borrowing. The interest rates, it reduces expenses because you don't have to do leases or do any kind of short-term financing on a smaller purchase. It's also reserved for emergencies, unforeseen events, and unexpected opportunities. So we here are prone to a catastrophic weather event, like a hurricane, tornadoes. So the fund balance is more than just keeping the town going. So there's also issues with like the potential if, houses got wiped out, the property value is going to decrease. That's going to decrease our revenues. And so we need to have something in place if that happens, or if people's places got wiped out, they're not going to be worried about when they pay their taxes right away. So there could be potential for revenues being pushed out or not getting them. And also the cost of rebuilding. So our infrastructure is expensive if a terrible storm comes through. And then the federal aid that we get, like the FEMA, sometimes it takes months, sometimes it takes years to get that back. And so then we'd be in trouble if we were depending on our fund balance to operate. And then also, yes, to keep it going. So a 75% fund balance would mean that we could continue to go approximately 9 months. Just that's how the LGC kind of tells you to look at it, which is definitely give or take depending on what your damage is or what's happening. It gives us increased investment income. So we use the North Carolina Capital Trust Fund, and we gain interest on that every month. And I mean, it definitely depends on the Federal Reserve and where interest rates are and things like that. But we do have some income from our investment and that's having a strong fund balance because I can keep it at the trust fund. It helps protect our credit rating. and potentially obtain lower interest rates. So it also helps to avoid rate increases or service reductions, and that's for the citizens. So if like mid-year something came through and our rates got increased that we pass along and we're trying to, such as recycling, if it was a much larger, that's how they look at it, is if it was like a much larger service and instead of having to send a bill out mid-year, we have fund balance to carry us through that we can pull from so that it's not an immediate issue. Also avoid LGC warnings.
What is LGC?
So that's what I'm going to go into next. So the Local Government Commission is the LGC. They're kind of my police, so to say. They watch fund balances all across North Carolina. It's where we would have to go to get any financing for if we were going to purchase, like say land, and it was going to be a considerable purchase of land. There's dollar amounts or things like that criteria where we would have to go to them. So you would have to apply to them for us to get that sizable loan. And so we have to be in really good standing with the LGC to be able to get a loan for things like that. So they say a minimum of 8% fund balance. They're going to come in way before it gets down to 8%. I've heard that over and over in my classes I've been to. It's just a number that has happened, but they've come in and started sending what they call their, warning letters, the nasty grams, and at like 25% in some towns. It's very dependent on what the town's situation is as to where your fund balance needs to be. And so that's kind of like the next thing. So beach towns, they say, should have larger amounts because we are prone to hurricanes. And you're more prone to the catastrophic weather events, where in the mountains, they also have, weather issues, but on a different type. So it just kind of depends on that situation and also specific to the town. You also consider your fund balance in relation to expenditures, but that's really the percentage. And then which I just said, the individual government situation. And so we've talked about fund balance. Local government uses fund accounting. So we have funds. And our main fund for every municipality, county, is your general fund. That's general operating, main purchases, things like that, all come out of that. So these are all of our funds. I'm sure everybody's seen these and are familiar with them. But each fund, when it comes time for audit, has their own set of financial statements. So each fund has its own fund balance. So, and each of these funds, if they have their own fund balance, they're not reported in general fund. So, like beach erosion has its own amount of money in its own fund. It's not part of whenever we're talking about the financials, don't really go into the other funds because they're so specific and they don't change every month. Like, dredging is a big fund right now that everybody's talking about, and dredging has enough money in it for what has been proposed for the grant, for our match. So there's not like a continuous taking out of general fund to the dredging or back and forth or anything like that. It's its own separate thing right now. And so I don't report that in the general fund report because it doesn't affect our general fund, our everyday operations. And I was put myself to each one has its own fund balance, and it's all in the audit. And the fund balance is reported once a year at June 30th because it can vary every single day. It depends on where your expenditures are, where your revenues are coming in. I could probably figure out a fund balance every day, but it's going to change. It could even change from morning to afternoon because of a revenue coming in or an extra expense coming out. And so then,
I have one question.
yeah.
Do all these funds, are they earning interest?
Yeah, so I actually have we have three, they're not mine, 3 accounts at the trust. So the dredging has its own, the dredging fund has its own account at the trust, at the North Carolina Capital Trust. And then general fund and Powell Bill are together. And then there's also there's a beach erosion one as well.
Thank you.
Our Powell Bill is it doesn't have a really strong fund balance, so it's just kind of keep it in there with general fund because it's also reported with general fund as well. It's just restricted as part of general fund, but for us, reporting issues, that's why we have it as a separate fund as well.
Where were these funds used?
The Capital Trust, Capital Management, North Carolina Capital Management Trust.
That's a state-run thing?
Yeah, so it's, investments for North Carolina are very restricted. We can't just go out and get stocks or whatever we want to invest in. It's very regulated, and the trust is like listed with LGC as a good place to do that. So I don't even have to report special on a separate for like the LGC 203 is a report I have to do twice a year. And so if I try to do investments outside of that, then I would have to do this like long report and all of the parties involved and things like that because of the restrictions that are on North Carolina local government. But with the trust, there's so many municipalities and counties that are with them that it's different. They have it set up so they trust them and they do specific reporting to the state so that. And I mean, honestly, the rates are, they're decent. I mean, no rates are great anywhere. So we can do CDs as well, but then it's not as your assets aren't as liquid with the CDs. I mean, you have to keep them in there for a certain amount of time. With the trust, I can call them and say, we need this money now, and within a day, it's in our checking account.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So then we would go on to types of revenues. This is just a list. We're going to go through each of these revenues separately, just so we kind of have an understanding of them. And then on the next slide, I did a pie chart of where all of our revenues and what the percentages are of our revenue for this. That's just something for you to kind of look at and reference to. So ad valorem is our property tax. This is the main revenue that we have control over. It makes up 32% of our budget. In towns similar to us, it usually is around 42%, and in classes I've attended, they say somewhere between 40 and 50 is kind of where you want to keep because it is the revenue that you have control over. Where we can set it. I mean, you can only set it during budget. You can't change it throughout the year, but you do have control over it that one time per year. And then I just want to kind of give you a breakdown of what it looks like on your tax bill. So if you had if you had a $300,000 home, and so our tax rate is at 16 cents per $100 value right now, and the county is 48.5 cents per $100 value. So your annual tax bill would be around $1,900, and $1,455 of that is going to go to the county, and $480 comes to the town. So it's not a big chunk of your tax bill that comes to the town for property tax. And then I just kind of went through to kind of show you what it would be if we had, nope, I'm still back on the last one. So I had just made some notes for myself. If we had done like a 1 cent tax reduction on a $300,000 home, this would save you $30 per year. On a $500,000 home, it'd be $50 per year. On a $1 million home, it would be $100 per year. It would be 1 cent in tax revenue or tax savings for you. But for the town, 1 cent would cost the town a loss of $166,000. And then I kind of did it as if we did a 5 cent tax reduction. So on a $300,000 home, a 5 cent tax reduction would save the homeowner $150 a year. On a $500,000 home, it'd be $250 a year. And on a $1 million home, it'd be $500. But that 5 cent tax reduction would cause a loss to the town of revenue of $830,000. I just want to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like. I mean, that would also be the same as if you added taxes. So when you look at it as a whole, it just kind of changes the dynamic of a little bit. So that's that. And then county fire fees. So I know there's already been a lot of discussion.
One question,
Yeah.
please. You said that for towns similar to us, it should be approximately 42%, yet ours is 32%.
Right.
What does that mean, or why is ours
So
special?
I'm kind of going to go through that over the next one. So the other revenues, if you look at them, let me go back a second.
If you're going to explain it, that's fine.
No, well, I mean, I can kind of just do an overview of it first. So fire fees come from the county, and so they can change, and we don't necessarily have control over that. Motor vehicle tax would be the other thing that is probably pretty secure, but that only makes up $88,000 of the entire budget. It's less than 1%. And then I'm going to go through sales and use tax and show you what can happen with that. So these, and then like permits and fees, service charges, grants, they're so variable. And occupancy tax is like one of the hardest things to forecast because it's so variable depending on weather and the economy, which I'm also going to go through. But so property tax is pretty much, you know, where it's level at, where you know what you're getting, and it's easy to forecast because the county sends me what our net assessed value is, so we know we have that money. And so towns, if you know, I mean, when you look at the pie chart and you see how much of a difference that is, if we lost other revenues, it's just kind of like a security thing. It doesn't have to be that way. It's just what, you know, like best practice. Does that help?
But the 32,
Well, it sounds like we get lots of other revenue sources besides property
We
taxes,
do,
which
and
is
ours
why
are,
32%.
and they're variable,
Yeah,
right?
okay. Thank you.
So I just kind of get a brief thing on fire fees because we have discussed fire fees quite a bit. So they can only be used in the fire department, and the fire department is fully funded by these fire fees. This revenue will increase over the years, but not as far as like per household. We're pretty much, there's not much room for us to increase a rate there at all. But it will increase some because of like new developments and homes and well, that's pretty much it because it's not based on value. It did increase partly in the past because of when they changed everything so you could go farther than 6 miles from a fire station. I pulled that from Brunswick County's website. So before it had to be less than 6 miles from the fire station where you did county fire fee for that municipality. But they said that Brunswick County did this change because it reflects the fact that the fire departments are responding to more than just what's in their district. So the fire departments are responding outside of fire districts to each other. So everybody's benefiting from that. They also said that the fire departments are responding to more vehicle accidents and EMS calls. And that Brunswick County is also reporting that there is a significant reduction in the number of volunteers and an increased number of having to have paid staff.
Tara, can I ask a question about?
Yeah.
So the fire fees are driven by the budgets that the town submits? What determines what
I don't,
fire
so
fee we
there's
get?
there's a group, I don't know who sets that.
Right. The way the fire fees have been established is there's a group that consists of the fire chief, the mayor, and a citizen at large selected by the council, all three of which are in this room. And then our county commissioner, the fire marshal for the county, is it the fire marshal or the? Fire administrator for the county. And they're selected citizen at large. And they get together and they talk and they make a recommendation to the county on what they feel the county, the fire fees rate should be. So it's a fee established by this committee that sends a request to the county. The county weighs the options of it based on a proposed budget that the fire department sends and whether it's justified or not. and then they make a ruling at their budget when they select their budget on if they're gonna go with those fees or keep the older fees or change the fees. So our request is what it is, they set our fee. And then the fees are generated based on the square footage of the house on the property.
That's the next slide too.
Oh, is it? Sorry.
No, I was just saying that you could see that on the next
So, the more houses we have, the more fees we collect. The larger the houses are, the more fees we collect. So even if we never change the rate again, and never request to change the rate again, the county leaves the rate the same. With all the development we're getting, the fees collected, we're just gonna go up.
So the rate's the same throughout the whole district?
In our district, yes.
In our fire district?
In our fire district. So someone in our fire district in Ocean Ridge is paying the same thing as someone in Cetro.
So what I'm trying to wrap my head around is, for a town such as Calabash, which has a much lower budget, let's say, fire department budget, than we would here at Sunset Beach.
Well, Calabash doesn't maintain their fire department. The Calabash Fire Department's a separate entity, but they collect the fire fee from the county, yes.
But it doesn't go through
But it
Calabash.
doesn't go through Calabash.
Okay.
They're not a municipal department. But using another municipal department, they will collect it the same way we would. They'll have a board that requests, the county will set a fee, and the county will set a fee based on their need structure.
So if I could just clarify, it sounds like the fire budget starts with this committee, or actually with our fire department putting together what we think and recommend, and it gets discussed by this 6-person committee,
More or less, yes.
more or less. And then balanced in with all the other communities in the county,
Yeah,
they determine what we're gonna get, whether we can get everything we want or
right.
not get everything we want.
And as Ms. Drop said, our fire department's fully funded through the fire fees. They're not maxed out of what they could be. They are shy of that. But we fully fund them so that we're not double dipping. We're not doing, what used to occur was we'd pay fire fees.
Right.
And come out of our ad valorem taxes to help
Right.
pay for the fire department. Now they're self-contained. That does help, going back to the previous question, compensate for the 42% versus 32% of our tax rate. Honestly, if we provided the fire service we're providing without fire fees, your taxes would be much higher.
So if we submit a budget that the commission says based on the square footage that you've got to serve, it's too high or too low, will they adjust the budget? Will they come back and say you're too high, for example, and you have to reduce?
Well, one of the things that's on their website is that a lot of these fire departments, I can't really speak for ours, but a lot of the fire departments in Brunswick County have a lot of capital needs coming up.
Right.
And like a fire truck costs a lot of money. So one of the things that was on there was you can put it into reserve so that we don't have to go, like right now we have a some vehicle, fire truck that's
Yeah.
financed. It's the only thing we have financed through the town. Outside of, like, it's the one thing we haven't just paid for is a fire truck. And so to prevent that, it's kind of like it's that first phase to starting them being on like a capital replacement for like fire engines or whatever, because they're expensive. And so that's why they're not gonna, I don't think they necessarily would say you need to reduce it. They may be like, you really need to make sure you put something aside for capital, which is one of the things that we're pushing this year.
So
you
then
mean
we
there's a-
reserve that? Sorry, John.
You mean in our budget, there is call it a capital improvement fund
Yeah, so
for
it's
future fire department needs,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
vehicles and stuff like that?
because it
established
has
that
to be
was-
spent on the fire department. We can't boost general funds,
Yeah.
the rest of general
Okay.
fund with fire fees.
Yeah.
It has to stay in the
Yeah.
fire department. So we've created a line that will be that's going to be like a capital fund
Yeah.
for fire capital.
And based on this current year's budget, that was only $14,000 overage versus what we were collecting versus what we plan to spend in the fire department. I would probably sit there and say, yes, if we were approaching an extra $500,000 to $1 million over our budget request, then yeah, they would look at lowering us. I mean, maybe even 300,000 over, but that's not where we're at. We're within $100,000 or less of the projected fees versus the projected costs. So I would think, to answer your question, that if we were way too high, we ourselves would probably make that request to change the fee in the first place.
because we're not just gonna sit there and stockpile money in the fire department. You know, the plan of the capital improvement for the fire department is to offset the cost of the loan when we do need new vehicles. It's not to flat out pay for them.
Got it.
So, yeah, there's probably a limit to where it makes it's good sense to reduce the fees eventually, but to be completely honest, we're not there. I mean, we're literally just talking a couple $1,000s here or there. That's the maintaining the difference.
But the capital fund, we retain here,
Yes,
not there.
no, it's a revenue stream for us, so they collect the fees on the taxes, and they give us the fees.
Got it. Okay,
So we manage the money ourselves.
got it. Thank you.
Maybe, and we've never had a capital fund for anything, correct?
Not officially,
Oh.
not one that we've
Not,
officially established.
yeah, not the way that we need to.
Yeah, the practices in the past have just been, when you need something, buy it. Not planning for a rotation, not planning for what you should do with money moving forward. It's just been a shoot from the hip kind of reaction. The year I need it, I want to buy it, pay full cash. So we're trying to go back to best practices moving forward.
It sounds good to me. Are we gonna go into that further sometime?
I'm sorry, what?
Are we, the capital funds sound like a great idea to me. I'm thinking back, if we had one for stormwater 10 years ago. So now we're sort of paying for what wasn't done years ago.
Well, the good thing too is, so they call it a capital reserve fund, and you don't have to earmark it for specific projects. It just, once you put it in there, that you have to use it for some sort of capital. So it's kind of like a guarantee to the town and to the citizens of where that money is going. Because you can't just say, I don't want it there anymore, I'm gonna take it back, put it back in general fund. Once you put it there, that's where it's gonna be. You can change the projects and, whatever, but it has to be some sort of capital improvement for the town.
With the exception of the fire one. The fire one's specific to the fire because
Right.
it's generated by fire fees.
That's different.
But a general capital fund we could just be putting $100,000 into a fund, and the police could draw from it next year for vehicles, or streets could draw from it to do road paving, or stormwater could do it for stormwater management practices. It's just a pot of guaranteed money to go towards capital improvements for the town. And yeah, we're gonna be developing that throughout this year, through our requests.
So,
Go ahead, John.
good, now you made me forget.
That easily?
So if we have these capital funds, we won't have to do these budget amendments when something comes up that needs replacing, if we have enough in the capital fund.
We would still have to do a budget.
You still have to do a budget amendment showing the transfer of money, unless it was a planned purchase at the beginning of the year during budget,
Right.
of which you showed it during the budget process. You'd be pulling money out of capital to go into blah, blah, blah. But
So capital plans can cross fiscal years. You don't have to, if it's a specific project, so it would have its own budget. And then that could be from that reserve. But then if you change that, then you would have to do an amendment. But if it was something that popped up mid-year, you would definitely have to do an amendment.
Thank you.
But the money should hopefully be there.
Right.
So it wouldn't be amendment from a general fund balance. It'd be amendment from the capital fund.
Yeah, I should have said general fund, sorry.
Just a question about capital, just in general. So things, like when I used to do budgets, things that were equipment, for example, would be a capital expense.
Depending on the cost.
And
Okay.
depending on the
So-
jurisdiction.
So things like radios for the police department, that's capital or not?
For us, no.
No?
But
Because of the amount of the expense?
largely, yeah. We don't really use our equipment as capital in this town. It's more project-based and larger infrastructure needs. I have worked in some jurisdictions where you would consider your laptop would be in a capital,
Yeah,
purchase.
exactly.
but it's not always. That becomes a jurisdictional base where you set the limit. Now, there's nothing that says we couldn't set that limit, but at that point, everything we have would be capital if we start using equipment.
Okay,
Our
But-
limit is $5,000 per item.
Yeah.
So,
5,000? Okay. All right, thanks.
but that
Just
wouldn't
wanted
have to come out of the
clarification.
capital fund. I mean, that's like just capital that would be like capital equipment. Like, we have different lines in the budget for that as well. So you wouldn't have to take it out of the capital reserve, but
Okay. Thanks.
A lot of capital gets thrown around.
A lot. Got it.
So the next revenue is motor vehicle tax, which the collection rate on this now is really close to 100% because, you know, a few years ago they changed how they did collections.
Tara, did I step on your toes with this one? Is there any more you want to talk about with the fire fees?
I mean, it's just to show
Okay.
like where they are. I don't really have much to say.
But these are the numbers for our fire
These are the
district?
numbers. So that it just shows the fire district outside town limits and the fire district inside town limits. I mean, I have a spreadsheet breakdown, and if anybody ever wants to see more information, I have gone through fire fees like crazy. So I can, if there's any questions or you want any of that information, just let me know.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I was just moving through my slides and, sorry.
So motor vehicle tax, it is a reliable revenue, but it's around 88,000, and that's current year and prior year together is around 88,000 total that comes in, and we don't have any control over that at all.
Do we get a set percentage of the tax that's
For the motor
collected?
vehicle stuff,
Yeah,
I honestly have no idea how that works. I just know what it comes in
at the end of the year, they've given us this much money.
Well, we get it throughout the year,
Yeah.
monthly.
Yeah, but by the end of the year.
Yeah, the county handles that motor vehicle. The state sends it to the county, and then the county sends it to municipalities, but I'm not really sure. In any of the classes I've ever been to, they've never really told me how exactly that works. So,
That's fine.
so sales and use tax is one of our other larger revenues. And the way that works, I do know how this one works. So the county levies the sales tax, which in Brunswick County is 2%. Businesses remit the sales tax to the Department of Revenue. And then the Department of Revenue allocates the sales tax to the county of origin. So that means that wherever, if it was like a something that you ordered and had it delivered, wherever it's delivered to is where our taxes, that's how they base it, because that's how we have to do our refund. And then, so the issue with sales and use tax, this is one of those potential challenges that we could have. I'm not saying that this is happening in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying this is a possibility that I wait for and look for from the county every year just to make sure, because I have seen it change in counties. So the county commissioners choose the method of allocation to the municipalities. There's two types. So it could be ad valorem based, or it could be per capita based. Right now we're per capita based, so it's based on our population. If the county commissioners were to decide to change over to the ad valorem based, we would lose 30% of our sales tax revenue immediately. And then the county would gain approximately 12%. So if you looked at the next slide, it shows you how I pulled this off of the Department of Revenue, because this is something they send me every month as far as where our population is reported at and where our ad valorem sits. Mayor, this is one of those things that they were telling you about. The census matters for this. This is crucial for that, especially since we're per capita. And then if you go to the next one, I just kind of showed you where that is. Where did my notes go? There. And so this shows you the difference for the revenue collected or allocated. And so the first one is what we're at, and that's population, so that's our per capita. And so for December, we got 77,877 and some change. If they were to change to ad valorem, we would have only gotten 52,000 for December. And then, so if every month was like December, our revenue for the year for Sales and use would be 934,000, roughly. If they changed that, our revenue from that would be 628,000. And then, so that would, it would be a loss in revenue for us of $305,561, basically, if every month was exactly the same as December. So this would probably be more, not less, because December, was not one of our biggest months. There's a lot of months where we bring in 120, 110. This one was 77. But if you look at the flip side of it, Brunswick County would gain $4 million in revenue for a year if they change methods. So it is a possibility. But I'm not saying that they would do that. I just, like, when they look at the revenues and they needed it, it's a possibility. They have every right to do it.
Do the
Right,
towns
but-
influence that? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Do the towns influence that at all?
I mean, you could probably go to a meeting. I'm not sure that we would even know that when they were deciding that.
We influence it through our county commissioner as well, you know, making sure that he's representing what we asked for. So that's our official channel of influence right there.
There's no talk of this happening. I want to show what the potential challenges are. This is not, like, I haven't heard anything that this is even coming down the road, but I have been in other counties and have seen this happen to where the county needed more of the allocation, so they changed their method, and they got more money, and the towns got less.
So
Doesn't-
that 30% loss, what would that equate to in tax rate?
So, like,
3,
2 point something, yeah.
2%.
But again, this is just
Right.
information.
Hypothetically, yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
on the horizon, hopefully.
It's just something that, like, I'm just kind of showing you some of the things I have to look at when I'm looking at revenues. Like, we won't have revenues yet. I don't have any projections from the league or anything like that yet. I know over the next couple of days, we're just kind of going through what the budget or what the departments are presenting. But these are just some of the things that I look at as a whole as we're going through the year and as we're going through budget and the potential things that we could see. But I promise I don't see this happening this year. It's just possible. We do have other governmental revenues from the county and state. I just read off that one, Cinda. You can go to the next one. So these are utility sales, beer and wine, solid waste disposal, ABC local law enforcement. So we don't have any control over these revenues. This is one of the things I get from the league for projections. They tell me it looks like it's going to be per municipality this much percent higher or this much percent lower, and so we just kind of fit that in with those. They're just passed down to us. We're not actually levying anything with these. But there is potential that these can be changed. And one of these examples is our ABC local revenue. This past June, they had 2 bills that were presented to the House and to the Senate to change the ABC revenue to the municipalities. That would not have only caused us to lose our revenue, it would have cost us money because we would have had to pay off the
Pay off all
mortgage
debt
of the
and-
building where the ABC store is located. So we get revenue from them quarterly, but this could potentially still cost us money in the future because they are going to revisit this. They've said that that's already in the plans. They're revisiting it and revising it. I don't know what it's going to look like, but this is just one of those things that's a potential. And this is actually a true potentially not good.
I think the council did a resolution
Mhm.
We
opposing
did.
that legislation. Yeah.
And we'll probably be doing another one.
Right.
Do
It's
we-
not- it
There's
won't
a
cost-
strong lobby that wants to
Yeah.
take it away
Well,
from us.
and for some towns, it's not going to really cost them anything other than loss of revenue. But for us, it would cost us money. So
Well, I have a question, and I don't know if this is the time to go into it. What's our revenue from the ABC store?
let me see if I
Roughly.
grab that. So year to date, we have received, well, I have January's, 43,000. But these that I'm talking about are they roughly total 2 million. Oh no, that has the fire fees in it. So maybe $1 million in it of total of all of these. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
but
not a huge chunk,
not
but-
ABC.
Not just
The
No, I'm
ABC
saying
revenue
in this
is-
section that I'm talking about,
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
other
yeah.
government revenues, yeah. No, ABC, year to date, we've received 43, so probably maybe 60. It just changes
Yeah.
every quarter, so it's hard to say.
I'm tax rate is such a hot issue. We lose this, I'm trying to think, what is that gonna make us put our tax rate up?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. So the next one is permits and fees. We talked about in the last meeting, building inspections is one of these, but building inspection fees now absolutely has to be spent only on building inspections department. And that changed over the last few years. And then zoning fees, so both permits and fees are very variable, and they're definitely sensitive to economic change, because if the economy's bad, people aren't gonna build. They're not gonna care if anything's zoned, because they're not gonna put anything there, they're not gonna spend money. Service charges are very specific to their programs. So these service charges are recycling, the beach wheelchair rentals, special events, and then this also I included in here is violations and fines, but they're contingent on compliance. So if people park where they're supposed to park, then we're gonna have less revenue from parking fees or parking fines. So this number I pulled from our fiscal year 18-19 because I had actual numbers for this. Cinda, you can go to the next one. So these are non-recurring revenues. So our grants, the special assessments, and any other miscellaneous revenues that come in, that could be a very wide range of things. One of the things that we had was the Department of Transportation giving us money back from a project that we had no idea we were getting that money back. So that was part of this budget for 18-19. That was non-recurring. And so that total amount made up for 9.3% of our revenue in 18-19. So that amount was $674,000. That was why our fund balance went down percentage-wise as a whole, but not as much as it could have, because we had these unexpected non-recurring revenues come in. And that would have, I did put that in here, that would have been about 4 cents in property tax. So occupancy tax. So we have a local act that gives us the authority to collect occupancy tax. We are one of the few that have the act set up the way that we do, that we can use it the way that we use it. Sunset Beach is authorized to levy the 6% on short-term rentals. 1% goes to the county, 2% the beach erosion fund, and 3% is allocated to the accommodations tax fund. And then what our local act says is that this 3% is for tourism-related expenses. And it's as used in this act, the term tourism-related expenditures includes the following types of expenditures: criminal justice, fire protection, public facilities and utilities, health facilities, solid waste and sewage treatment, and the control and repair of waterfront erosion. So there have been challenges with accommodations tax, which is what I have next. So this is one of the hardest things for me to forecast because it is so dependent on people. The league isn't going to give me a projection to say, this is going to be affected in any way. They don't have all of that resource. The economy hugely affects this because if people if they're worried about their investments or their money or anything like that, they're not going to travel. They're not going to spend money on that vacation to go anywhere. It's also dependent on the weather. So So if we get hurricanes, people aren't gonna come, they're gonna cancel their, rentals. So like hurricanes or flooding. This has been, one of my biggest things I've been dealing with recently because of the changes with VRBO and Airbnb. I have come across something that may be beneficial. So this is like the one thing that I do want to kind of get direction from council on as far as if I need to look into this further. There is a company called LocalGov that has been contacting me for months. I've been talking back and forth with them for months. It started out as they wanted like $40,000 to completely take over our accommodations tax and manage it for us. And I was like, no, because then that's just excessive. And they said that they would audit every rental property in the town. They have some kind of software where they work with VRBO and Airbnb that they can figure out who's renting and whatever. But they would take, at first it was a 50-50 split for 3 years of whatever money that they find. I was very hesitant with all of this. And now I think that they're just trying to get into our area. So they've offered to have it set up for $2,000 to offer online payments and have a kiosk in the front for anybody that wants to come in and report themselves here and not want to go online on their computer. And then they will also do the audits on these rental properties. And any property that they find, the town would get 60% and LocalGov would get 40% of any rental properties that they find that aren't being reported to VRBO, Airbnb, or us. So he's supposed to call me again next week, and I told him that I would mention it, but I'm not sure how I feel about it. I just kind of wanted to see what the general consensus is of council.
Does VRBO report to you by town, or do they just give a lump sum?
I get a check, and
check.
that is it.
So how will they,
I'm not sure. They're not going to tell me, I guess, but that's why I'm hesitant. I'm not sure. What I've been told is that they have software that I guess they can track VRBO. I'm not sure.
How long did they do this? You said they've changed their initial cost to
VRBOs.
$2,000?
Oh, that was
LocalGov.
this last time I had talked to
Yeah,
him.
and
They
would
do it on
that be an annual rate or just
It's a
one?
rollout rate, is how he said it.
And so how long would they?
I think what the
They do
cost would
that.
be, what I think that they're hoping is that the cost would be through the fees that they get from the credit cards and the reports is how they would get their money instead of us paying them. Does that make sense?
the
Well,
fees
the-
for,
Oh,
Because the credit card, like we even have a fee online, so I don't know what their fee is, but that's how they would get some of their money is through if citizens reported to them their taxes, like their payments. I mean, obviously VRBO and Airbnb wouldn't
yeah, that's right.
do it that way,
Yeah.
but the people that live here or pay here, like through our website or through the town, they would have a fee, kind of like they pay with credit card now,
yeah, okay, so my question is the $2,000,
one time.
just one time for 1 year? Or one time for?
It's a rollout, so there was no recurring on that.
How
okay.
long would they be doing the project? Just manage it for,
Well, the fees for where they have audit is a 3-year
3-year.
commitment.
Did,
I'm looking into other ways to try to figure this out, like sending out surveys or, but that cost even would be close to $10,000.
To do the surveys?
Yeah.
Yeah. My,
could send
my,
it
my,
out and
my
get it
thinking
back.
on this, though, is you know, you should have a fairly good idea in terms of what you get from the non-rental companies that go like the Airbnb or
yeah.
independent
Mhm.
on a given year. If we
Right.
did $2,000 for a year, you'd be able to see is there a significant increase without us trying to go and police and identify all the, you know, the independent rentals and Airbnbs and VRBOs in the community, which we would be very intrusive in the process of trying to do that.
Right.
I mean, I think that's,
Just kind of see
and then
how,
you
it-
can,
how much it
for
changes.
$2,000, we can see whether it's worth the effort or not.
Right.
I guess that's just what I'm thinking about. I don't know if that's,
I mean,
I don't know if
he's
that's
gonna have
valid
to
or
give
not.
me- So what the next step would be is for him to show me a demo of what exactly it is that he's doing. I mean, I'm not saying I want to go into this right now. I just kind of wanted to see if you guys were interested in me pursuing this or not, because, I mean, it would ultimately be up to you if I do or not.
How does
Um,
Sunset Properties report, how does Sunset Properties report to you? Because they probably do more rentals than,
A list, so properties and the amounts.
okay, so,
They do send a list. The only people that don't is Airbnb and VRBO.
do we know what percent of your revenues come from those types of rentals?
No, there is a website that it's called AirDNA, which is another option that when you look at it, right now you could go to it and look at it and see Sunset Beach, and it shows that 42% of rentals are through VRBO and Airbnb for Sunset Beach.
42%?
I'm amazed at that.
Me too. Can you imagine how many tax
So-
That's
dollars?
what that website said. I don't know that. It's hard for me to say because I don't know exactly who is on that. Like, other towns have a specific staff member that only does accommodations tax, but other towns have get like over $1 million.
Yeah, but you know historically what percent non-Sunset property tax comes in?
Sunset property.
Well, so,
Any of the
Non-
vacation
non-rental
rentals
company.
companies.
The rental
I have a
companies,
spreadsheet. I don't know. I can't tell you a percentage, but I have a spreadsheet of every property that does rental and go through it.
okay.
That's how it was managed when I got here. And I've continued that. I didn't have any experience with accommodations tax before coming. And it didn't seem to be an issue until the change in October.
Yeah, I know.
my thoughts would be continue talking with these guys and so we figure out what it is,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, I'll have him do the
wi-
demo
Without
next
making a
week
commitment. Yeah.
and then see where it stands. But that's just one of the challenges. This was just to show you where the property tax was.
Before we leave the accommodation tax.
Yeah.
You know, we had discussions in the previous council about trying to change and what our flexibility was to use these taxes for sort of different purposes. And the short story is that we are grandfathered in under state legislation, which gives us the degree of flexibility that was listed here and how we can use our 3% tax. Any change to this would require state legislation, which would immediately take away our grandfathering and lock us into a very restrictive system that's not nearly as beneficial to us. And that was sort of the lesson learned from that process as we explored it. So just reminding everybody.
So you can go through this one, Cindy. We already talked about that. One of the things that that we had talked about in staff was that just to show what it would be to cover our entire budget with just property tax, and to cover our entire budget if we didn't have any other revenues would be 44 cents. So then I wanted to do a tax rate comparison, because I know that our tax rate is every year and always will be a topic of discussion. So this kind of shows where we sit in comparison to Brunswick County and to other coastal towns that are, you know, I just chose some that I knew that we had been compared to in the past, and just some other ones as well. So in Brunswick County, our tax rate is the lowest outside of towns that have limited services and no police department. So all of those that are below us do not have a police department, and I didn't look at fire departments, but I don't really think that they have municipal fire departments either. Do you know?
I don't think so.
But with the way our fire fees are, that,
Yeah,
that
that's
doesn't
also
come
coming
into
out.
be a
Right,
factor
that's
for
why I
them,
just
so
put police
Police
departments on
department
there.
does,
Yep.
yeah.
They also, majority of these towns that are below us in tax rates, like you said, are limited service. They don't provide all the time, full-time maintenance staff or,
Right.
stormwater services or, you know, basically everything but inspections. And some of these towns are covered by the county instead for their inspections too, so.
And then if you look at the other side, it also, so the ones that are in green and red, those were the changes from 18 to 19. If I did green if it went up, and red if it went down. Most coastal towns went up last year. And then the next one kind of shows you a little bit deeper comparison. So I went through and figured out the net assessed value of every town in Brunswick County and also of those same coastal towns, and then put them on this chart to show where our net assessed value, so this is the total property value of Sunset Beach, is that figure under net assessed. And then the last column is where the total revenues, so with the town's tax rates and their net assessed, what their revenue was projected for 1920. Everybody that's highlighted in green has higher revenue than Sunset Beach for property tax. I know that one of the discussions we've had before was that Sunset Beach has the highest or higher property value. And so that was, when I started this, I wanted to see how true that was. If that was genuinely why our tax rate was lower. But even those that have higher net assessed values than us have a higher tax rate, is what I found in some spots. So this is just kind of like for you to reference and look at, just to get an idea. I didn't have time to go through and see all of the services and things like that. I know that is also a factor in this, but that would have taken me a long time. And so that's pretty much my overview. And then anybody have any questions about any of it? And even if not today, always just email me or call me. I'm happy to do whatever I can.
Just a question about historical things. Was there ever any discussion within the county to have something like a police department fee for the ETJ areas?
I've never heard of that.
I've never heard of that either.
No?
No.
Because it seems kind of...
Do we offer police to the ETJ?
Only under state law protections and on mutual aid, right?
Oh, really? It's only if a call comes from the county?
Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, depending upon what the call is, if there's a bank holdup in state employees, credit union, they're on 911,
Right.
and we hear that on the radio, we're likely to go.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Any more questions?
I just have a comment. I think this detailed explanation of our budget and how it's composed is very good. Thank you for taking the time to do that
I think you've done an
and
excellent
educating
job.
us.
Thank
Thank
so
you,
much,
Karen.
Chair.
You wanna help send it in,
recess. Take a recess, just a second.
Actually, you know,
It might be better for you to sit
I
there.
would, because then I don't
I
have to keep
prefer you
bringing
sit
my.
there so we can stay focused up through here.
Yeah. And you get the same treatment as the rest of the departments get.
Yeah, I gave up this seat. I'll do it.
Thank you.
Everybody back in. Call this meeting back to order. Next up will be hire our town administrator.
Thank you. I'm gonna be going, can y'all hear me? All right. I'm gonna be going over, just some proposals from administration side of things for this year's budget. Things to consider, even if we don't go about it this year, it's things to consider for the, just the future of the town in general. Start by looking at some town hall upgrades. Next slide, please. Several of y'all know that we've got some of the punch locks on our doors, the punch codes, for security reasons, and they're not quite always operable. Someone's getting stuck right now that apparently I'm the only one in town that can open on the first try. But what we've been discussing is going on to these electronic locks, using the little key card fobs to let people in. One of the problems that we're facing is as we let people go or people leave us, we got to change all the codes. So that's a new code, new change out. Whereas if we went to a key system or a card reader system, we'd be able to just go into the computer, take out their access code, and we don't have to worry about them having entry to the building anymore. Excuse me, there's about 7 of these doors. One of them's back here going into the police department, one from the main lobby to the police department, one in this back hall to the police department, one to the inspections hall, and then 2 into administration from both lobbies. Over time, we think this would be a better deal for us. We'd also be able to control who has what codes to what part of the building. And I'm just thinking about, we forgot the vault. It was included in the price? Okay, because it wasn't included in the number of count on the invoice, so, or the quote. Anyway, so, and the vault would, you know, we'd be able to give everybody a key card and basically control what rooms they had access to as well. So what we're, you know, this is a proposed cost of maybe $16,000 to upgrade the hardware and do the computer system. And I can't remember if that includes the monitoring fee or not, or we hadn't gotten back on that one yet. Okay, so there'll be a,
Question.
You just said monitoring fee, would that mean we could track entry? We have a record of who's coming and going,
yes,
or who's coming?
basically, yeah.
Yeah.
We'd be able to monitor all that, and then there's like just an annual like subscription fee involved in that.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You said you, with the current system and someone leaves, you have to change all the codes?
Well, for instance, if it's a police officer, we have to change every code in the building. If it was someone from inspection side, most likely just 2 codes. Anyone from administration, we got to change all the codes, including the vault.
So there, each person, everybody has the same code?
Yeah, we all use the same codes for each. Not each door doesn't have the same code. There's three different codes in town. Well, 4 if you count the vault. But so
I'm talking about the individuals.
No, every individual uses the same codes to operate whatever door they're going into.
When I set up a system at the high school, each employee had a different code number.
Yeah, our locks aren't that
You're not.
sophisticated.
Oh,
No, they're just
Yeah.
basic mechanical combination locks.
okay.
But a card would,
Yeah, a card would be
or
able
a
to give
card
us
would account for that,
individualized
yeah.
access.
Yeah.
Any questions on that anymore? All right. Next slide, please. Thank you. The furniture in this town hall is dated, broken, and kind of hodgepodge together in the conference room and out here. So what I'm proposing is new chairs for the council chambers and the conference room. Not just necessarily updated, but, you know, we've got 3 chairs that have been removed from here from being broken. There's 2 in here that are currently broken. There's no consistency in the chairs in the next room. And this would just give us a better overall professional appearance that is kind of lacking with our community at this point when you come into the council chambers and our conference center. Including that would also be a new table for the conference room. That table is 4 tables that put together that doesn't quite do what it's supposed to do. It's annoying when you're trying to meet with people and the tables are clacking together. And I think we need to bring ourselves up to the 21st century and maybe modernize and have a little bit of utility in that table to interact with the large screen TV, internet capabilities and whatnot that we're having in the next room over. So these costs vary based on what we'd be looking at, the style of chair, and the more we order, the better the price may be. So I know the fire department's looking possibly at new chairs as well for their training room. So we could go in with them and hopefully bring these costs down a little bit more. But this is what I'm proposing to look at right now, is just to bring us a little bit more modern.
Hiram,
Yes, sir.
what do we use this room for?
Well, we use it quite often to meet with people. We allow nonprofits to come in and use it. We actually do allow, basically anyone can use it as a meeting room if they sign up for it and rent it, and not rent it basically, but reserve it from us. We also, in times of like hurricanes and whatnot, it is designed to be a backup, or is intended to be a backup EOC prior to Fire Station 2. But we can use it to monitor the weather and coordinate. I'd like to modernize it so that we could actually staff that and staff the EOC, and they could communicate directly with each other, utilizing some video and whatnot. That's not in this, that's down the road, but we get a lot of use out of that just when we're meeting with people. Not always have room in our offices to meet with more than 1 or 2 people. I know inspections and planning uses it quite frequently.
Okay.
But it gets regular use, and like I said, a lot of our nonprofits come in and use it as well.
We also used it during the hiring and interviewing process for the
Yeah.
town administrator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Nightmares.
going back to that process, and that's also something I'd like to update, is the technical difficulties we had during that process.
Yeah.
Modernizing would alleviate some of
Yeah.
that.
The technologies with the table would be an important thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So staff break room would be the next thing I'd like to upgrade here. We've all been in there. It's clean, but it doesn't feel like it's clean all the time. Countertops are old. The floor is a little dingy. The refrigerator's not large enough for the staff. The sink's way too small. And we've got a preliminary design I did not bring with me. I left it on my counter in my house. I was going over stuff this weekend. But it'd be a minor renovation. We're looking at maybe $8,000 to replace cabinets, put in shelves, replace the countertops, strip the floors, clean the floors, new refrigerator, new sink. And it's just something to consider, because that's basically where we get away from everybody else. And sit down, have just a few minutes to ourselves, eat, take a break, drink our coffee. And it's just important to de-stress, and it'd be nice to de-stress in something that was a little bit nicer. Next slide, please. Restroom facilities. Again, we've all been in them. They're not the most up-to-date. They're not the most modern. They haven't been touched in, 20 years? Maybe. This would be a major renovation, looking at replacing all the fixtures, replacing the stalls, replacing the sinks, replacing the countertops, maybe putting in some storage cabinet capabilities, and just making it a more general professional facility. I don't know what we can say more about bathrooms.
I do have one observation. Seems to me like they could be better cleaned.
And we are working on our clean RFP. Right now, they're cleaned once a week. And we're looking at bringing our cleaning staff in more than once a week. And last thing for town hall upgrades is landscaping around town hall. These are obviously not shots of town hall, but they are shots of what something similar in town hall could look like. Something clean, something open, something inviting, not with a bunch of dead bushes, dead and dying bushes going around. This is an outside ballpark figure. I told him to give me the maximum of what it would cost to really do up the place, and we're looking at $30,000, so it can only come down from there. But basically, the curb appeal is one of the complaints I get most from citizens and visitors alike, is that town hall just doesn't look like it's a place where people actually go. So cleaning up our appearance, I think, would do a lot for that.
Does this include the ERC's discussion of,
No, it does not include the, thank
Rain
you,
garden.
rain garden
Yeah.
over there, and nor does it include any operations for next door. I left that off at this time until we get further into the budget process. Any questions on? All right. So we talked about town hall upgrades. Let's talk about town and our profile upgrades. Next slide, please. We have a couple of outlets to the public that we need to work on and improve our public image in general. Right now, we have Channel 99 on ATMC. It is functional 10% of the year right now. It is a pain to get into. It's not, the equipment's not modern. We bought that equipment in 2010, Lisa, 10 or 12. It doesn't support Windows 10. So we have to remote in from one of our computers to an older computer that uses Windows 7 to remote into the software at the TV channel. And the most we can get out of that is a ticker tape at the bottom and a slide presentation. So it's basically a glorified PowerPoint presentation on TV. If it's something the town would like to keep, my recommendation is that we find a way to improve it and utilize it more fully. Get it to the capability of where we could post videos. Your council meetings could be streamed to it. We could replay the older council meetings. We could do video messages for the town, community involvement pieces, segments, something that we would go out and showcase our park, showcase our beach, showcase the gazebo, showcase new things that we're doing, but actually have it filmed, talked about, and presented to people as opposed to just being a slide that they have to read themselves, making an actual closer to what a TV channel should be if we want to go this route. The reason I've got cost to be determined is we're still waiting on getting a confirmed meeting with ATMC about our channel equipment currently, and then I'd like to talk to them about any possible upgrades. But we just haven't been able to get our schedules lined up with the people responsible.
what kind of fee do we pay ATMC now for this?
Nothing.
Nothing?
There's no fee involved. We had to buy the equipment to get the
Yeah.
channel, and it's only presented to our residents. Like, I don't get it in Carolina Shores. Channel 99 is just a blank nothing for me. Channel 99 inside the town limits would be a slide presentation if we didn't have it taken down right now. Because it was broken, wasn't doing the slides, it was just playing Caribbean music. So, there's technical difficulties all around with that channel. I think it would be a good way to improve our public image, a good way to get information out to people, and a good way to display things to people, and a way for the community to give something to us that we could project out for them as well, and make it a real community-involved station. But that's gonna take clearly upgrading the equipment, getting the time to do stuff like that, and putting it all together. At the same time, if we just get it upgraded and turned on, we can go back to the slideshow right now. But overall, this is one of the things that coming up, we're gonna have to figure out whether if we wanna keep it, we do have to put some money into it, one way or the other.
One would think if we do keep it and we do put money into it, one of the, I don't know, options that would try to get is give the viewer a chance to select from a menu. I mean, if the viewer wants to look at a YouTube versus a public hearing versus, some other general information rather than having to go through, right now you have to go through the whole slideshow to find out
Right.
what's on there.
And that's one of the things, if I can get my meeting with ATMC lined up, what can we do with it? How far we can go with it, and what it would take to make it happen. So, but just food for thought. Along with that is our YouTube channel, which currently only hosts council meetings. The fire department's doing some great things by doing some safety videos and cabana setup videos and things like that. I'd like to get out there for the town as a whole and utilize the town's YouTube channel to do something similar. Again, showcase special events, showcase our concerts, not necessarily broadcast them because there's copyright laws, but just showcase things that we're doing so that people can click on and know that the town's alive and vibrant, and it's not just six people sitting behind a podium, discussing town business. Love you guys, but that's not what people want to see when they're searching, Sunset Beach on YouTube. They want to see landscapes, they want to see sunsets, they want to see people enjoying themselves at the beach. And I'd like to be able to put together some videos utilizing just what we've got right now. There's no additional cost. We got the camera, just take some staff time to go out and produce a few things, and just put it up there as a community focus. Maybe even the people hosting the special events at the park, have them sit down and talk about what their event is, why it's important, and what they're doing for the community as a whole when they're holding these events. I think just doing a spotlight kind of thing would really shine a good light on us, and it's relatively zero cost at us other than staff time to do that. But I'd like to expand our YouTube channel and make it more than just council meetings. And then the town website needs an overhaul. Not just because it was built several years ago, mind you, and we've just been maintaining the way it is. But as we move forward with accessibility needs, ADA compliance, things like that, websites are having to become accessible as well, to allow people to use their readers, allow people to more accessibly find the information that they need up front, including our required accessibility notices that will be up there hopefully in the next 2 weeks. The price I found online and talking to a few people, $20,000 would get us a high-level intermediate website rebuild. This is zero copywriting, of course, we do all the copy ourselves, but this is, them coming in, building it, asking us, what people go to the most, looking at some of the trends and giving us a more modern take on our website. This is probably the most used tool for people to find information on the town, and more often than not, they're running into roadblocks on how they're gonna find it. Not just because, it's not that I'm saying the website's bad, don't take it that way. I mean, I know exactly where to go for everything, but I use it. Our average tourist doesn't know exactly where to go to look for whatever they're looking for. So I think making it more user-friendly for the outsider from the town will go a long way to producing information for people to know what we're doing, who we are, and why they should come here.
One of the things would also be to make sure that if we did an upgrade, we would try to do it in such a way that town staff could relatively easily do updates.
Yeah.
And make it user-friendly also for the staff as well as for the consumer.
Right, and included in that's also the educational component. That's why it's still higher for them to come in and make it and run us through everything. Keeping in line with our building up our personal profile information for everybody is also the town profile information. So next slide, please, with town marketing. We've discussed this as one of the, last year, I know the town, next slide, please, wanted to go into doing something to get the town noticed, some marketing for the town, and we didn't follow through in budget. And I know that y'all expressed interest at the last workshop about trying to get, more businesses to come here, get our message out there kind of thing. So one of the ways to make that happen would be a marketing firm. But marketing firms, what you want out of it is what you're gonna pay for. You pay for what you get. So the cost here is between 50 and 100,000, depending on where you wanna go with it. I couldn't give anyone to nail me down a price. They just kept giving me price structures. So until we know what we want to market, they couldn't really give me a price. What we wanted from them, they wouldn't give me a price. But the simplest thing to do here is if we did hire a firm, producing advertisements for us, producing a plan for us, getting strategies together for us, and where we need to focus on, this is Sunset Beach, this is who we are, this is what we are, we're growing, we're building, we want you to come here for tourism, but also the other side of it, we want you to come here for business. So it'd be like a dual-folded marketing plan, because we'd be now a dual-folded town, not just for tourism, but to convince people that we're a safe, stable place where they could open up a business. And to be completely 100% honest, I've got no idea how to make that happen. Professionals would have a better clue on that. So a marketing firm is one way to go about doing that kind of thing. Probably the easiest way for us to put our feet in the water and start testing what we can and can't do and who we can attract. Which would also, if there's any questions on that part.
How about the economic development director?
That's the next page, so.
Oh.
Next slide. All right, so either in combination with marketing firm or in lieu of, town seeking to hire an economic development director to focus solely on making this a more viable place for businesses to be sustained. Coming in here with restructuring policies, procedures, helping us develop, most likely if we're going to enter the throes of economic development to try to boost businesses in town, we're going to end up investing some money to do that. I don't know if that be consistent investment through like well-defined policies as opposed to just willy-nilly, but economic developer could really help make that happen. They could work on our public relations, they could work on our special events, they could host our special events for the things that, if we want to do cap off our seasons with things to do, new events, just, throughout the town, work with the chamber, work with our local businesses to build them up, work on attracting other businesses to come here. Not looking so much for chains as we are looking for homegrown stuff, but sometimes homegrown stuff comes when you get something else here that's viable and can anchor down the area a little bit. It may also help entice some of the people who own the majority of the commercial land to start developing said commercial land if they know the town's also dedicated to making sure what they build gets filled and stays viable. So, two options to market out the town. I think a combination of both would be the best moving forward in the future. Starting out, I would say either a fledgling economic development program or a marketing firm to help us move forward with what we want to do.
Either or?
I would like both, but like I said, money's not, we're not looking to try to bankroll this thing 100% year one either.
Yeah.
This would be a step building process. So I would say straight out of the gate, one or the other. Not both, but down the road, eventually both.
Yeah. I mean, one of the overarching issues that we have is both there's several of them, with the limited commercial area that we do have, even though a lot of it is not being used, is a permanent population that's here to provide, that core group to sustain. And we're sitting there, we think the population is going up. We have concerns about how many people are coming and how many people are using the beaches and all that. But, part of this, you need to have the consumers here all the time to be able to support that. So
Well,
that should be one of the factors that we have to consider in this process.
and if you go back a slide for me real quick, I did pull off some graphics here that are basic tenets of economic development. The first one I ever learned in school was definitely the one at the last one there, which is land plus labor plus capital equals economic development. We've got some land, we've got labor moving in. It's up to us to invest how, at the next point, would be the capital, or the assistance in that capital. But yes, our population does depend on that. The towns around us depend on our population as well. They're able to sustain build-up because we have people here that use them as well. So the regional aspect of it is, it'd be good for us. It may hurt our neighbors a little bit. We don't know, but we also don't know with our population increase coming up with these future developments, if our neighbors are gonna be able to sustain as well year-round, and including the tourist season, the demand that's gonna be put on them. So hopefully, the people moving in here will wanna start a business and will wanna serve the local population, or at least someone will start a business using the people who are moving here as labor. But hopefully our population increase will help build these programs, is my hope.
Yeah.
Would part of a marketing director's duties be trying to find things to build our shoulder seasons?
Yeah.
Would put people in the beach houses where they're usually not, and
Definitely, putting it on paper versus what's in my head versus what's next year versus what's 10 years down the road, there's a lot of variables. My hope, honestly, would be we have an economic developer working with a marketing firm to do national advertisements to get people here to assist, and then also locally assist, like, say, Citro with their convention center, bringing people, guaranteed people there, helping them put their butts in the houses here, any other future growth that may come, and then have thriving events cycling through that they're assisting. Say C-Trail grabbed this event for, you know, Lawyers Association, Managers Association, just, you know, we don't have to host it. They can drag it in here and find someone to host it for them, would be my hope. But like I said, this isn't next year. This is build up over the next several years to get to where we want to be. We're not just gonna be able to snap our fingers and say, this is a great place to build a business, let's go. It's gonna take time, it's gonna take negotiations, it's gonna take talking to people, it's gonna take some money to prove that we're a worthy place for people to establish themselves. Because you've got several things that are going against us. We're off the highway, which is where everybody wants to be now. Getting that traffic going past us down to the beach. So if they see something, they know they can come back up here. But no one's driving through town to go, oh, I saw that nice little restaurant or that nice little clothing store. And even though I'm staying over here, I'm gonna go up here and shop. That doesn't strike people because they don't get the visibility. And then the highway upgrades and improvements are gonna take away some of that already when the interchanges come through for 31. So that's gonna hinder us. So we gotta find a way to make people realize that we're not just, I mean, I know there's the underlying argument that there's enough people here, this is where we are, we wanna be this type of town. But if we want to utilize our commercial corridor, we wanna build our tax base with commercial buildings as opposed to residential a little bit, because there's not much corridor, commercial here. It's only gonna infill along this road at this point, and that's mostly it. So once that gets built up, once that gets full, that'll hopefully draw people here. But to get people to invest in building that, we got to start laying the groundwork and paving for that. And like I said, this is a 10-year aspect, not a next year or the year after. So it's, you know, even if we don't go down this road this year, it's food for thought for what we need to do to proceed. And as it is, we're already currently looking at grants to help our local businesses when they come up. We're looking at events that people may want to come through here and do. We talk to people all the time that may want to set up a special event outside the current season and see if there's any way we can help them convince them to do it here as opposed to somewhere else. So there's things that we're already doing, but we're not dedicated to it. Having someone dedicated to it would go a lot further. All right, next slide, please, and the slide after. Other projects are, of course, the concert series, Sunset Sound Waves. Next slide, please. Thank you. Concerts this year, we stayed under the budget of $35,000 that was given to us last year. We put together several concerts at a last minute notice, got bands, got a location, but did very limited advertising. This year, we're going with a little bit smaller number of bands to see how a shorter season works, if more people will show up as opposed to getting the stragglers because they just, you know, I went last week, may not go next week. We're going to try to advertise a little bit better this year. We're going to try to build it up. I feel that 35,000 is a good number. We're getting some good bands. I put in here up to 40,000 just in case we want to increase into our advertising next year after this season and go a little bit further out, or if we want to get some different bands. This is an event that spans 2 fiscal years, so it's kind of hard to plan for what we may want to decide to do at the beginning of next season based on however we do this season. So that's why I've got that little gap in there. We may go up on the concerts, we may start them earlier. That's, again, would cost us more money on the upfront side. But this year we're doing 10. We got some really good bands. They're doing it at a really good price for us. I don't know how long we can keep convince them to do it at a really good price for us. I know eventually people, I know they always want more, don't get me wrong. They're willing to do it a little bit less for us, so that's really nice of them. But we're getting good quality. To get better quality bands, which I'm not saying these are bad, don't get me wrong, you will pay more. So it all depends on what the people want. I think people were satisfied with the type of bands we had last year, so I'm not looking to really change that up. I am looking to do some radio spots to get people on the local stations in the area to, you know, put more butts in the seats. If they're listening to the radios, they're coming through looking for events to do. You know, the radio station in Wilmington last year did it for a few of the bands, because those bands tell them where they're gonna be going those weeks. But it'd be nice to have them doing it for all the bands that are coming here every week. Increase a little bit of the signage, and we'll be using the county to advertise as well. Any questions on the concerts?
This is all coming out of,
Accommodations tax.
so what's the total bucket of accommodation tax dollars that we would have?
It varies. The revenues for accommodations vary. It's like Tara was telling you a little while ago, we don't really know how to project that. We've had $500,000 budgeted this year. Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we budgeted for $500,000 for this year. We don't know if that's what we're gonna get until, our last check comes in after the fiscal year.
Okay.
So, we'll probably project somewhere in a similar range, if that's what it looks like it's coming in.
Mhm.
So it's not a huge pot of money, so to speak. It does offset for us though. But as far as, 100% of this comes out of that
So-
fund.
But we can see what the total accommodation tax is and everything that's going into it, right?
So on Tuesday,
Tuesday?
I'll have budget books that pass out to council, and it'll have everything that the departments have talked about included in a very, very beginning draft budget.
Got it.
So then
Okay,
you'll be able to see everything as a whole.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that Tuesday tomorrow or Tuesday
Yeah.
next week? Tomorrow, okay.
Just for, since that got brought up now, we're giving y'all at the end of the presentations tomorrow, like Tara said, the first draft, very rough, of, proposed budget based on, the department presentations. And again, not knowing 100% revenues or where we can calculate revenues yet, because as Tara just explained, it's not that part of the season yet. So just basing it on what we think, the trend would be from what we had this year is how we're building the budget at the beginning. So it's still up and down from here.
Okay.
Parking study. Y'all will be talking about this next week, so I went ahead and threw this in here. At the next week's meeting, y'all are gonna have a dedicated session to talking about parking. What I've put in here are a few options that staff sees as a possibility coming out of the park, if y'all do a parking study, or if we do it in-house, or whatever you wanna, what meeting you wanna look at. But everyone I've talked to, all the consultants, all the other towns, between about $10 to $20 or $25,000 is what a parking study is gonna run you, if y'all choose to go down that road. So that number's in here, just for your review. But I still personally think what you're gonna get out of any study is open up more streets for parking, find property to buy or lease to put parking on, develop parking decks, or just accept that it is what it is. There's no more land mass. It's not usually a problem except for the high-end seasons, and if people want to go to the beach, they need to get there earlier. So those are my predictions of what a parking study will net you. But this is also what I think y'all should be discussing in next week's meeting, are these types of concepts and identifying what you want out of that meeting. But if y'all choose to go the route of a consultant based on what you want and the scope of your service, about $10,000 to $25,000. And finally, we just got approval on the RFP for a salary and benefit study. Talking to a few people, this is kind of the outside cap we should be expecting, is $30,000, depending again on the scope of services that we're asking for. Those will be let out April, and this is just a placeholder number for budget purposes. Like I said, this is variable based on what we get back and the scope of services offered. And we won't know that until June, so, based on the RFP schedule. Oh, one last thing that didn't make it in here, and again, this is just a future thought kind of thing. We're not getting any bigger as far as land. We're not allowed to involuntarily annex. But we are growing, and the area around us is growing, the other towns are growing, our ETJ is growing, outside of our ETJ is growing. if the town ever wants to be in a position to grow with it, we'll need to have, in the back of your minds, land to do some type of facility or a rebuild of town hall, or we need space as we grow in the next 20 years. Again, like I said, this isn't a next year kind of problem, but, just in the back of your heads, that at some point we will need to put aside something to look at doing some type of growing for our organization as it is, because whether people like it or not, if they want more services, that requires more people. More people means you have to house them somewhere. So office space is at a premium when you're talking about a town that doesn't let you go higher than 35 feet for most properties. So looking at a larger facility, somewhere to put public works, somewhere to put new town hall, somewhere to put everything we might want to do. We might want to do a recycle center as opposed to doing recycle collection. Having space to have those options in the future is key. So just keep that in the back of your heads.
Anyone got any questions? Everybody good?
Hold on a second.
Any concerns over what I showed you? You want to go back and look at Dilbert?
At what point do we talk comprehensively about people, staff?
We can do that per department if you like. If you're talking about turnover and such.
Yeah. And numbers of people, turnover,
I
projected increases.
As far as salaries comparisons, I can go ahead and talk about administrations. I think every department's ready to talk about theirs during their presentations. We're roughly in line with most other people for the services and the hats that administration's wearing. We have 5 people in administration if you count finance with us. Turnover rate, let's see, finance is 2 people. They've lost three people in 5 years. 200%. Yeah. But it's not hard when you're dealing with such low figure of people, and we went. Tara's our 3rd finance director in the last 4 years. So, that turnover. The rest of administration, you've got 1 position turned over in the last 5 years, and that's my position.
Yeah.
As far as why people are leaving, without going into specifics, because we can't give you specifics on people's resignation letters and whatnot. Is it for more money? Not out of administration, it's not. At least not that we've been told. Again, though, can't go into specifics for specific people. And neither should any of the other departments be able to do that. So they should be able to give you an indication of whether it was for more money. They can't give you an indication of who, what, when, where, and why.
Okay.
Just because of personnel restrictions from general statutes. But as far, like I said, again, administration, we're about in line with everybody financially. But again, I didn't stress that with the staff to go searching like we did last year and the year before, based on the salary benefit study, going to do a lot of that legwork for us. And we just went over this last year as an overhaul and reclassification the year before for several people. So it's still fresh. The numbers should not have deviated that much from last year to this year.
I have a question. How much of the staff lives within the town limits? And if not in the town limits, what is the span for our employees?
As far as town limits, I think we have 1 person, 2? Is it 2 now? Okay, 2 people live in the town limits. The majority of people live more than 5 miles out. I'd probably say the majority of people live more than 10 miles out. Yeah, I think the furthest employee we've got, it depends if you consider Leland or somewhere in Columbus County as being the furthest out. So.
Anyone else?
I think just sort of as a warning, if you would, as we go through the rest of the departments in particular, I'd be interested to see sort of what the fire department started to do, but kind of a view of a pretty comprehensive, complete inventory of our major vehicles, major pieces of equipment,
Every department should be bringing that to you.
and life cycles that go with that. so we can start looking across the board out there where we're going.
And I believe Public Works will have one, if it's not already drafted up, it's being worked on.
Okay,
The police should have one, and I think that was in the packet too, wasn't it, Chief? Oh, you didn't put it in your
No,
packet? Okay.
no. Okay,
Okay. And the fire department put theirs in their packet.
okay. Just as a clarification overall, when we buy major equipment, vehicles and other things, does it all go through a North Carolina State Purchasing Department, or do we do some direct to vendors for, like, we've got some heavy pieces of equipment as well as vehicles?
It depends on the type of vehicle and where the better deal is. But like, the vac truck went through straight from the distributor. The fire trucks will go from the distributor, because they build to order.
Okay.
Our vac truck was a demo model. It wasn't a build to order, but we still got it straight from the distributor. Stuff like, but most of those stuff we go for state contract for typical vehicles, or similar state contract. The Sheriff's Association has its own contract separate sometimes.
Okay.
But yeah, we always, we do our best to go through the pre-audited contracts.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, we'll go to Kerry White, our chief building official.
Yes, as far as, I don't really know what you have in front of you. Just a memo, was pretty short. It's the one I give you, Hiram? Is that, okay. As far as, taking, what we had earlier discussed, and which was a couple things, concerning, the vehicles and staff turnover rate. So I have all those items in front of me here to kind of, bring you up to speed. Obviously, our department, is more, in need of things of continuing education, training, and things of that nature. That's mandatory for our department. We all have to have continuing education in all trades that we have, 6 hours per year. That's mandatory by the state that we have to get in. And so training is one of our our biggest expenses as far as that goes. As far as our vehicles, obviously, the vehicle that was just passed and we just ordered, that's our last vehicle. We're on a 10-year roll-up plan. And so last year, the year before last, we purchased a new vehicle, a new truck. And then last year, we purchased a new vehicle. And then this one here will take out one of our 07s, which will go to auction. But that'll take care of us as far as big expenditures. We don't have any capital improvements items in our department. It's basically the vehicles was the main thing. And so this last vehicle will be us for 10 years on this one and 8 on the others.
So you have a total of 4 vehicles?
We got a total of 3. 2 pickup trucks and then the SUV. That we just purchased. And obviously we purchased that through state contract as well, through the Sheriff's Association.
You've got how many people?
We've got staff, I got 2 other building inspectors and then Cindy and myself.
So a total of 4.
Total of 4, yes, sir.
And Cindy shared between him and Ty's department.
She is.
Right.
Moving on.
You got enough to
forward.
keep up?
We do
with-
it this
with-
time. Yes, sir. I've got a seasoned inspector, and I've got a junior inspector who came on last year that has worked on his certifications. He'll be fully certified for doing most of the buildings in town come June of this year. So we've got a pretty good group of guys doing inspections. That's not really looking to go anywhere.
the inspection fees have to be used through the inspections department, is
Yes,
that
sir.
correct?
Under House Bill 255, that was passed.
Does that include your salaries?
Yes, sir, that's salaries as well.
Are you,
The overhead for the building as well.
Yeah, any admin on our side.
is there, do you have a number? Do the building inspection fees pay for the whole department?
This
year
was a different year, so that's why we added the vehicle in this year that they needed, because they had a lot of, the big projects that had come in, they created a lot of revenue for the building inspector department. Last year it wasn't an issue. So 18-19, it wasn't an issue. This was the year that it became, it's one of those that's gonna be hard to forecast.
Yeah, I'd say looking back at the last couple budgets, the money brought in was just shy of the money expended.
Yes, it's pretty close.
This will be the first year we have to deal with the fact that we probably brought in more than we're spending on inspection.
And in that case, you develop a fund for, reserve fund for future requirements?
In the inspection
Okay.
department, yes, sir.
But again, it's a variable.
Yeah.
You know, the projects may have been approved this year, but we're not guaranteed to have all that construction. I mean, it could be another instance of, you know, knock on wood,
Yeah.
market just falls apart and half the stuff doesn't get built. You know, so it's nothing we can forecast too easily.
I budgeted very conservatively.
Yeah.
Good.
We budget most revenues a little bit conservatively.
Any other questions regarding
I'm good.
that? Okay. As far as our staff, obviously, we've got 100% turnover rate in the last 5 years.
But not in the last 3.
Past 3 years, hiring advanced up administrator, but nothing in the last 3 years,
So we got, the department got stable. a few
4 years ago.
They had a complete turnover, so our turnover rate for inspections and planning departments, are a little bit misleading because the entire department left in, 2016,
15, 16.
15 and 16, so. And how much of that was due to seeking better pay? 50%?
Yeah, a little under 50, yeah, right at 50%. Others for personal reasons.
Yeah. No, 2 of them went to county, didn't they? County inspections? Sandy and Jeff?
That was
Well, you probably
Yeah,
don't know,
they are
yeah.
with the county,
Yeah,
yes, sir.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
salary structure was,
What's that now?
salaries,
Theirs,
yet know your current employee's salary comparison.
I'm sorry. Yeah, let me, I was looking at the, as far as, the study, I actually took the study from last year that I had done. And, we're in line, with everybody's positions. Like I say, this was last year's, didn't pull any this year. I felt like they were pretty close. The only thing, and Hiram and myself have talked about this, is a little bit of reclassification and cleaning up some of the job descriptions and to get more in line. We basically only have 2 positions here. We have my position and a building inspector, just straight across the board. And we had kind of tossed this around last year a little bit too, to stay more competitive and to be fair to the other 2 guys and anybody that has certifications, because obviously we have levels from level 1 to level 3, is to be able to get more or less a building classification for a 1 inspector and a 2 inspector, and multi-trade inspectors, and to be able to just kind of revamp that, the existing building code classification, and try to be more, competitive with other beach towns and counties and things of that nature. So that's something going forward I'm looking at trying to do.
So,
Right now, they're treating, like Terry said, we have a seasoned inspector, we have a junior inspector, and they're both sitting in the same pay classification. You know, we've got someone with multiple years of experience with several 2s, several 3 certifications, and someone came in with just a few 1s, basically the same pay grade. So to find a way to do, and this is something we talked about during last year too, doing steps and most of our job classifications. Just because it's classified in the book doesn't mean you have to budget it as a position that's filled, but we should have the options for if someone reaches the peak of their, let's say building inspector 1 and they're at the cap of the pay, well, they can't get merit bonuses, they can't get COLA increases unless you adjust the scale. Having a building inspector 2 for them to transition into would be very useful for a lot of our employees for the longevity side of things. It's also a lot more useful if, let's say we lost one of our seasoned inspectors, and we need to hire someone with level 2s across the board to maintain these buildings. Bringing them in at a higher classification, we'll be able to find someone without having to train them up again. So it's something we need to look at, and we're gonna definitely look at it with the, pay study, because that's something they should do for us if they come into look at our classifications, but in lieu of that, you know, if we don't go through with the pay scale studies, next year we need to provide something in the study, I think, for a lot of our departments, not just inspections, to cover that kind of flaw in our system.
so right now, the only time somebody moves up is if they get a merit increase or a COLA increase,
Yes, sir.
and there's
But there's also,
no progression in reward for,
Not for certifications, no, sir.
Yeah.
and there's also the standard of which we have to hire someone at too. Our junior inspectors, having to scramble to get to what he needs to have those level 2s, he wants them, but we're also kind of putting pressure on him to get there as fast as he can. As opposed to if we did have a lower classification, we could hire someone, give them a little bit more time to build up to level 2s and ranges, as opposed to meeting those minimum standards of that job title. It's a lot of pressure.
Yes, pressure.
Especially since we're a multi-trade town. You know, the county doesn't do multi-trades for every position, they got single trades, you know, and they're offering similar pay for single trades. Whereas we're offering multi-trades for, you know, they have to be able to do all 4 trades.
Yeah, and that's a draw for a lot of, building inspectors, just to, if they can go somewhere and do 2 types of inspections and make the same amount of money, a lot of them choose to do that instead of trying to get all the certifications, and make the same amount of money. So that's why I'm looking at maybe, reclassifying that, one of those jobs in the near future.
Anything else?
I think that addressed everything, y'all had concerns back during that
yeah,
time.
I don't have anything
I'll
else.
be more than happy.
I'm
to
fine.
answer any questions.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank y'all.
Yes, sir.
The next one will be Todd, Rodmacher, he's not here. I know he communicated to me that basically he's just asking for continuing ed, is that?
That's still the same, I'm sorry, I meant to mention that. Yeah, Todd, that's basically his, he's not asking for any vehicle, no big ticket items, just basically just to, continue education and training, throughout. And I think that was really about all, wasn't it?
That's all we
Yeah.
discussed with us, so.
So if he needs a vehicle, does he use one of yours?
He'll ride, yeah, he'll have to ride with us.
Yeah.
We've actually got the town vehicle to us, at
The
administration,
escape out front gets shared
yeah.
Okay.
by admin, Public Works for training, by Todd for driving around. So, I mean, it's the go out of town vehicle too, so, that's the vehicle that, the planning department uses as well.
A lot of times he'll ride too with, one of my inspectors, which is Stanley, because some of the work kind of crosses over. And so, if we do any type of, anything dealing with GAMA, FEMA, he'll certainly ride with him, because a lot of times they lap,
Yeah.
their jobs.
It's good to know that he does not need his own vehicle.
Yeah, yeah,
I'd say that it wouldn't be wanted, but
Yeah.
we just can't, we've got a vehicle that's
Yeah.
usable,
Yeah.
so.
okay, any other questions? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank y'all.
Next up will be our stormwater. John Michon.
starting off with professional services. The original,
You might want to use your mic.
I'm sorry, the original budgeted amount, I believe, is 66,500, and I'm requesting that amount go up to 75,000. The explanation I gave there on that sheet is absolutely meaningless, and I apologize for that. Let me break it down for you better. That professional services line item covers engineering, design work for stormwater projects, as well as any outsourced geographical information system contract that we might have. So the way I've broken it down is approximately 45,000 of that professional services line item is earmarked for engineering, and not 35, but around 30,000 for GIS contracted services work. So that's what that line item is for, and I've bumped it up a little bit there. You can see to $75,000, just to correspond somewhat with the next item in that, on that sheet there, which is infrastructure repair and maintenance. Currently, we're budgeted at 200,000, and I'm requesting to go to 300. And if you look at that table underneath there, that's, you've all seen that. We went over that in detail. What that is if you look at the total estimated cost for those projects listed there, 340, approximately $5,000, 345. That would be the hard cost of the projects themselves, plus the additional $45,000 we talked about in professional services. That would come out of a different line item, but that's what that is there. And those are the projects that I would recommend we attack for next fiscal year. And that's assuming that the two projects that were the budget amendment that was done just recently that provided funding, we hope, for the two top priority projects that were on this list, 2nd and 3rd Street. Assuming those bids, we will complete that engineering, and hopefully the bids will come in within that range. So with that, I just want to mention, we've talked a lot about, or the council has talked a lot about revenue sources. Terry did a good job with that. I was fortunate enough to attend a stormwater finance workshop taught at the Environmental Finance Center at the UNC School of Government. I think it was in January. I went up there. But one of the big topics, that was a group of impressive engineers / finance administrators throughout the state. And one of the big topics and the takeaways for me was the fact that there could be some different, depending on the appetite of the council, some state revolving funds available to fund some of the infrastructure projects that the town of Sunset Beach is facing, which is very similar to many of the other municipalities, as you can imagine, throughout the state. One of the questions that I didn't answer very well that Councilman Phillips asked during our stormwater workshop we had was, how long does the pipe last? How long does concrete pipe last? And I didn't do a good job of answering that. I didn't really know the answer, but obviously, if installed properly and the right product used, that you can get a long service life out of some of the repair work and replacement work that we're doing now, 50 years plus maybe. And so in that workshop, one of the concepts, and most of you are familiar with this, was presented in this manner, was basically if you look at the distribution over time of the benefit to the town in doing these projects that are long-term benefits, do you do the financing, do you pay as you go, and possibly spike the ad valorem tax as a result of compressing the payment of and coverage of those particular projects and short-term monies, versus, if there's access to subsidized loans out there at half the current commercial interest rate, for example, low interest rate currently, spread out over a similar lifespan of the benefit, is that a more fair way and a better way to manage going ahead and being able to potentially borrow, do debt financing, borrow that money, get it done now? When I say now, I mean over the next 3 to 5 years, and spread that burden, cost burden, over a more comparable benefit period of time. And I mean, so that's just one thing that was presented, and I've, in about 2 minutes, told you all I know about finance. But that would be something I think that it would be worth exploring, and I'm certain that Tara would be very willing to do so if the council would be willing to look into that possibility.
So you're
Can
talking
you-
about taking, like, estimating over the next 3 years, we'd spend $100 million or $2 million on stormwater. Take out a long-term loan over 20 years and spread it out that way.
Clean Water State Revolving Fund, yes, sir.
Is that the better interest rate, does that come through the state revolving fund?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just a concept there of how to take care of issues now when you, and also looking at the actual cost over time in terms of potential savings from inflationary cost that you'll experience if you pay as you go, and 5 years from now, 8 years from now, it's gonna cost more to do the projects we're doing now. So if you get them done and then have that financial tool in place, it might make sense from a, that, and I don't know, and I haven't reviewed any documents, but it's just my gut instinct based on what I've heard since I've been here, that this town is in a very good shape from an LGC standpoint and fiscally solid compared to many, many other municipalities and local governments in this state. So it might be something to look at.
If we did that, would our timetable be shortened to get all the projects done?
I believe, yes, sir, I believe so. And mainly, I mean, I think you could probably do 3 to 5 years and get the bulk of what needs to be done. So it would allow for that, yes, sir. And allow for you to engage some contractors that are doing good work and doing it at reasonable rates to go ahead and finish the work and get it done. I don't know if that answered, I'm not sure if that answered your question or not.
It did. I mean, this was something that's been put off for years, partly in order to keep the tax rate artificially low. I saw the problems on Main Street, 28th Street, and the lower end of 28th Street. We just had that rain the other day, and there were no problems. And I tell you what, a couple of my neighbors came out and they tell me, "Oh, thank you for getting that done. That's why I didn't get it done." But you all rated things and what was need to be done first. And I look at, one of the older lists I look at, and I go back, I go over to the island, and I look at that area when it's raining, and I think, oh my God, this is worse. So, I'd like to see that lowered, our time frame lowered.
John?
Yes, sir.
So your 300,000 that you're asking for does not include the 75 for the services? or
It includes 45 of that 75. It includes what I've earmarked out of the professional and I apologize, that's not well done here. Of that $75,000, I'm recommending for that line item of professional services, 45,000 is earmarked for engineering for the 300,000. So the net would be 345. Or the total would be 345.
What about the other 30,000 that you've asked for?
That's for geographical information system maintenance and improvements.
But
That's
is that
just
part of the budget as well? I'm not sure what you're asking for. You're asking for
I'm asking for an increase from 66,500 to 75,000, in that line item.
What-
had the 30,000 in it already.
Yeah, thank you. I did a horrible job.
The confusion I think is happening here, he's asking for 75 for professional services, 300 to do these projects, and then the breakdown of the project costs down at the bottom, the reason it doesn't equal 300 is because he's including the engineering into that.
So what he's asking for is the 344, 500.
No, what he's asking for is 375.
He's okay, so he is asking for the 375.
Yeah, he's asking for the 375, but as far as the 35,000 for GIS is not included in these projects. That chart at the bottom is just for these projects.
Okay.
He's showing the engineering cost inside the projects.
So he's showing 300,000 for the project, 45,000 to engineer those 5 projects.
and
And then another 30,000,
35,000 for GIS.
35 for GIS. Okay.
Now you know why I'm not the finance officer.
So how does that number compare to this year's budget?
This year, we had 66,000 in professional services, and we had 200,000 in the projects. So his first 2 statements are just increasing the current year, and he's showing you what he wants to increase the current year up to.
And there's nothing in your estimates to sort of include the inevitable breakdowns that are not part of this program that come from storms and other problems?
There is no contingency.
Okay, so what, this past year, how much of your budget actually got diverted into
That's a
Re-
great
re-
question, Mr.
resolving problems that we did not anticipate?
That's a great question, and I can't give you the answer to that off the top of my head. I don't know if there are quite a bit, but I don't know.
It was quite
That's
a
good.
bit,
That's a
Yeah.
good question. I'll have to dig into that.
and it was quite a bit the year before as well.
Yeah.
My recommendation is if you're taking, this is what he wants for these projects.
Yeah,
As we move forward, we do need to build contingency into this. I usually say 10%, but 10% of 300 isn't gonna do it. I mean, you need to put
That's-
another 100,000 in. Because we've spent 100,000 on projects that we're just not part of the plan. If you take into account the engineering, the cleanup, everything else.
So is that part of the 266?
no.
It's not, there's
No.
no contingency in this at this point. This is what he's asking just for based on the plan.
Right, but you said
I
that you
would-
spent an additional 100,000 on top of the 266 this year?
No, we stayed within as much as we could. within-
Well, the way it would work out is if we had unknown expenditures, which we will, it's just how much.
Yeah.
We won't be able to do all 5 of those projects.
That's
We'll
what
have-
happened
We
this
would
year.
do less.
Yeah.
Because we would have to divert some of those earmarked monies to repair of something. Plus, we utilize, there's another line item, and what is it, Tara, that we used for the repair of some damage done by Dorian? Natural disaster.
Natural disaster.
Natural disaster funding. There was some other funding in the budget that we utilized for that very purpose, but there's, at this point in time, no contingency.
So we did a budget amendment this year for stormwater.
This month.
Yeah.
Right, so that wasn't a part of the 200,000 plus the 66?
That was above it.
Okay, so what is the total for this year, including the budget amendment?
We don't have that on hand. I'm just saying, it was significant, but we don't have that on.
We just added 159, so
It was
359 plus
359.
the 66 bond.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So we just happen to have enough funds in the town to be able to handle, essentially, if you did some gross extrapolations, it was 159 of hurricane damage that was unbudgeted. Storm damage, yeah.
Yes, sir.
And that's what, we just resolved that now, but that kind of gives us an idea of what we did this year for, call it contingency
Plus
funds.
the $50,000 in the natural disaster line item that was exhausted
Yeah,
as a result of Dorian. But yes, sir, that's a
Yeah.
good way to look at
Okay.
it.
yeah,
That also went towards leaf and limb and everything, so.
yeah.
So then, based on what we've spent this year,
Yeah.
including the budget amendment, 425, we're asking for less for next year.
We're presenting projects out of the plan that he wants to produce. But yeah, my recommendation is to add extra money in there for unforeseen projects, so we don't have to do budget amendments. but that's not what he came to the table with. This is department presentations about the work they want to do. It's not necessarily, this is what I want my complete budget to be.
No, I understand.
Okay.
I'm just trying to make some sense out of what we've spent to what we are planning to spend.
That, you'll see that tomorrow when I give you the book with, because it'll have the prior to,
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine, then I'll wait till
prior
tomorrow.
few years in it. So
Okay.
16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19 actual numbers will be in there. Amended 15, 19, 20 budget, and then proposed 2021 budget. So you'll have comparisons.
Okay. Thanks.
Sorry about the confusion. Any other questions about this page?
I'm interested in the, that revolving fund. Can you get some figures together for that? Wouldn't that, if we were to borrow money to do the stormwater project earlier, wouldn't that play into this year's budget or next year's budget?
It depends on the timeline.
Yeah, well, we,
Listen to the financing process for that. I'm not done on the stormwater financing. I have the paperwork, from the class, and so I'll make some calls and find out what that process entails. To
Yeah.
get a better
Yeah.
idea of what that
It's a
looks like.
twice a year cycle, but
you know, going back, we had the consultant study for stormwater that gave us a figure, and I thought it was about $1 million, but I don't know, I could be way off on that. But we had an option of doing 5 years and 10 years, and we chose to put it out to a 10-year plan. I mean, so that gives you an idea of what the future anticipated projects are that we haven't done yet. And it has a 3 or 4 year old cost estimate, which is no longer accurate at all. But it starts to give you a place to start looking at what kind of money we're talking about to do that first study in terms of if we're going to try to get a longer-term loan so we could accelerate but spread out the payments.
correct.
And then kind of figure out how far we want to spread out the payments, how that would work.
Yes, sir.
That would be a prudent thing at least to look into.
Okay, thank you. The next page is related to equipment. Capital outlay is the request for the purchase of a mini excavator for the cost of, a compact excavator for the cost of $85,000, which would be used between the stormwater department and the public works department. It would have all the bells and whistles, as you can imagine, for $85,000, but it would help us maintain swales and ditches. With that would include a rotary mower attachment that would help also with some of these areas that are difficult to get to. And we can't get our current backhoe in many of the places we need to get it to. So that's the request for a mini excavator.
This would help, with our easements back here.
Correct.
This is what y'all are renting, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So what are we paying for rentals in the course of a year now?
Right now, I mean, to rent one is $1,800 a month, maybe, something like that. But we find that we need it quite often. And when you need it, you need it in terms of repair work and emergency work, and would be my recommendation that it would be better for the town to actually own this equipment than rent it.
Do we rent one now?
We rent one occasionally, yes, sir. We're not renting one now. We have probably 10 or 12 projects that we need to do with one that I have earmarked, but it's too wet. The site conditions are too wet for so it wouldn't, right now, we're not doing that, but renting is an option.
But when we need one now, we
Rent it, yes,
We
sir.
rent it.
Yes, sir.
So one of these machines, what's kind of the life cycle of one of these? And kind of track record of the annual maintenance cost that goes with it?
I don't have that breakdown for you today.
I mean, if we're spending 20-plus thousand a year renting it, and it has a 5-year life cycle, then we, over time, would be saving money, depending on
Yes, sir.
what the maintenance
Yes,
is. I mean, and to make a good decision,
I would need to dig into
you
it
need to
more.
have some of that
Yeah,
information.
I agree with you, yes, sir.
The equipment you rent, does it have all the bells and whistles like this does?
No, sir. No, it doesn't.
What can't the rental do that this would do?
Well, this particular piece of equipment, that quote, I should say, of $85,000 includes multiple type of buckets. It includes a swivel head, hydraulic adjustment, on the machine, as well as a thumb and a mower attachment, things that would add to any rental. It's not that you can't rent any of this equipment, you can, but it just adds to it.
Can we use that plow for clearing driveways when it snows here?
That would
We
probably
don't
work
have a
for
snow
that, too.
vehicle yet.
Yes, sir, that would probably work for that too. So, but anyway, I can look
Climate
into more
change.
of the life cycle cost, like Mr. Corbett said, and give you some better data about that in terms of the cost of rental. And I understand that, the evaluation between, and the need to look closely at whether or not it's more cost effective and makes more sense to rent versus own. This is a piece of equipment that would be extremely valuable for us to have as a town.
It would probably need a maintenance service agreement rather than maintain it in-house.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Did I understand, though, that you have another piece of equipment that we own as well? It's just larger than this?
We have a backhoe that we share between Public Works and Stormwater. This effective when you're working within a roadway and have ample room. And so the backhoe is extremely useful and helpful for a number of different reasons, clearing after storm events and all kind of things.
The one I see down on the beach?
Yes, sir.
That's one that we own.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Would we need also another trailer or something for carrying this thing around?
No, we could use the same trailer that we have for
Okay.
both pieces of equipment.
Just to, I believe you said that this piece of equipment would be shared with Public Works?
Yes, sir.
John, how wide are the easements that this will be going down?
The easements, a lot of easements that we have are 10 feet wide.
So the backhoe is really not an option.
The backhoe can't, it's too heavy even to get back in
Yeah.
most of the places, much less, I mean, it's too big as well, but I'll gather some more life cycle and maintenance contract information for the council to make a more informed decision about this. I'll take that and run with it. The next page is a vehicle. And this vehicle here is a $36,500 vehicle. I put this in the budget request because we need a vehicle. We don't need this vehicle. We currently have a 2007 truck that runs fine. If anybody else, if there's any other vehicle that can be passed down to stormwater, that works too, but we do need two vehicles in the department. In other words, through other replacements of other vehicles in other departments, it might be that we don't need to purchase this out of, from the stormwater budget. We can use whatever, it doesn't matter.
How many miles does this have on it?
This one
This
has
is
zero.
2007.
2007, 100, it's over 100,000.
It was also a hand-me-down from inspections when y'all bought inspections last truck 2 years ago.
So,
But you're saying you need two vehicles,
yes, sir,
and you only have one now.
correct,
You have two members now.
correct.
Okay. Do you usually, the two of you go out together, or do you run separately?
Well, we can't run separately. We only have one vehicle.
Well, I mean, you stay back and send him out doing something else, or one of your requirements that you both go out at the same time looking at the same project and,
We do a lot, yes, sir. We do a lot. We share the vehicle, and sometimes I use my own vehicle to go places when he's tied up. But it would be good to have another vehicle available. Any other questions about that? And then the final page is new personnel. And obviously, there's a number of different ways and valid ways to staff this department, and how it's organized. I present these two positions here that I'm requesting are for different reasons. One, I'm requesting these positions. One would be, we don't work in silos. In other words, we have to obviously work with Public Works closely. And that means that there are certain jobs that more than two people need to do, and there are a number of them for a number of reasons. We share resources, equipment and personnel, back and forth. And that's the way it needs to be. And during peak season demands, there are certain tasks that Public Works has to do that they're understaffed, and we have to combine resources, and we will continue to do that. So we share those resources. But the other reason, I see there's a lot of need for work that we could do in-house that we don't have enough personnel for. That's one reason why I'm requesting these positions. But the other, and just as important reason, would be, even though Jerry and myself look rather young, and we work.
careful who you're talking to. I mean,
We
You haven't
work
reached
like we're
maturity
very young. Succession planning, I think that's very important for us to look at as a town and as a department, is to look at, there'll be changes in 24, 36 months, wherever that falls, but in our department. And I think it's very important for the town to have somebody on board that can do the technical piece of this job, and inspections and permitting, GIS work in-house as much as possible, and also be out in the field and do the work that's needed to hands-on maintenance of ditches and cleaning catch basins, repairing and installing pipes, all that. But I don't think it would be beneficial in the long term for the town to not look at and evaluate how we're going to manage that in the future long term, as we have turnover and Jerry and I won't be here forever, And so there's two reasons. One is, I think right now there's a lot of drainage easement work to do, and as you know, there's a lot of other work. And it could be that if these positions were approved, that 2 or 3 years from now, the size of the stormwater department might still be 1 or 2 people, depending on what the council and administrators desires, or it might need to be a little larger and still work together with Public Works. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it. There's no one right way to do it necessarily, but I think it's important for this information and for somebody to be up to speed, to be able to take over and give the town some years of service, and not have a period of time when you lose some momentum that you might lose if you don't have anybody trained and ready to roll. So that's just my thoughts on that. And that's why I'm asking for these 2 positions.
Well, one of the things to keep in mind is when we increase staff, you're not just increasing salary, add another 30% to the cost and becomes a long-term
Recurring
issue.
cost.
I mean, it'd be one thing if we came up with a plan that would handle and budget out to do all of our stormwater in the next 3 to 5 years and identified a position that would be a 3 to 5 year position. But, I mean, I think you need to work on your justification to go to try to get 2 positions at this point in time. And more clarity in terms of what their qualifications should be and what their responsibilities would be and how it impacts, minimizes, takes a burden away from DPW.
Jerry could retire at any time. I think for stormwater, he's invaluable. No one's going to know where everything is like he does. So I don't know. maybe one new person that Jerry could train. So when he does retire, again, which could be any time, we'd have someone to replace him. I don't know about 2 positions. Unless you're planning on retiring tomorrow, too.
No, I wouldn't. And I agree with what you're saying there. That was the root cause behind even one position would be to make sure that we don't lose our institutional knowledge base. And that's critical and important for us at this point in time. And Jerry is and you're exactly right. Jerry's knowledge of the local infrastructure is extremely valuable. And it would be my desire, and what I mentioned to Hiram was this position, I would like to see, and back to your point, that I would like to see somebody with some associate's degree, that understands a little bit about basic engineering and can manage the budget and the permitting process and the bid process in compliance with the state guidelines, as well as learn from Jerry and myself about the projects that are ongoing and the current issues and challenges associated with the stormwater infrastructure.
So are we documenting these things that we know, that you want to train new people for? Do we have at least some attempt to get this down on paper?
Yes, sir. That's what we're utilizing GIS for, and tracking. And you're exactly right. There's a pattern associated with it, or hopefully will become more and more of a pattern where we do less replacement work and more just maintenance work, is that ideally over time, and not have to do the larger projects associated with it. But yes, sir, we are tracking it. Any other questions?
That's all I have.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Can we take a small recess, please?
Recess.
Time hadn't even changed yet.
Chief, will you catch the door? Other fire chief is here.
Thank you.
Everybody ready? Everybody's good. All right, meeting back in order. Next up is our Budget Works, Public Works. Yeah, this is a budget work. Public Works Department, it'd be Mr. Dustin Graham. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I think the first one you got is the personnel in your packet, the first one up. At current staff, there's the public works director, me, my assistant, Cindy Stevens, and I have 3 guys right now at maintenance, 2 workers, right now. You know, over the past, in the past year, I've lost one. He's moved over to the stormwater. So I did have 4, but he's moved over to that. So I've lost my operator. So I like to bring back an equipment operator back into Public Works under me to help with us in that position. But it also will migrate also back and forth when John needs help in the stormwater also that we share. Also,
So this is a replacement?
I like to go back to 4. I was at 4, but he moved over into the stormwater. Jerry did. So when they did that, it only left me 3 with the guys in the field and myself. So I like to get back to 4, to where I was at one time.
So you want four crew members?
Yeah,
And you're missing the classification for equipment operator?
I'm missing the classification
So
for
you want to
equipment
hire a
operator.
new person and it be an equipment operator?
Yes.
So do you have an equipment operator now or not?
No, I do not. All my guys are at maintenance worker too. as right
Prior,
now.
just
Yeah.
prior to the swap over, the job makeup over at Public Works was director and assistant, and then there was 1 equipment operator, and then 3 maintenance workers.
Yes.
So we took his equipment operator away, put it in stormwater. So new position would also be an equipment operator,
Yes.
or at least the availability of an
Maybe.
equipment operator in the new position. So one of your guys would have the availability maybe to move up.
Yes.
Okay.
So I can maybe move up one of my guys and we bring in a maintenance worker.
Is one of your current maintenance workers qualified to be an equipment operator?
Yes.
Have the appropriate license and experience and
Yes.
knows how to handle the equipment?
Yes.
Do they do that now?
Yes.
Oh,
He
they
does
do?
that. Yeah, they do that now.
In limited capacity.
Limited capacity of what he can. Yes.
Why limited?
Limited.
What's limiting them?
It's certain equipment like a motor grader, not too familiar with a motor grader, just certain equipment. But he's, backhoe, he can run a trackhoe or the excavator that like John was presenting. He can run that also.
So he's got the license for it and everything?
Yeah, there's certain equipment he can run, yes. And certain equipment that he have to learn how to run, but that's willing, just like I did. I had to run all of it myself.
So we've got stormwater wants 2 more people and you want 1 more person to replace the one you gave to stormwater before.
Right,
So-
because in the summertime, when summer gets here, when the season gets going, I rotate my guys out 2 times or twice a month. They rotate every other week. With just 3, that puts me in rotation also, so I'll be in here on the weekends also doing trash because I rotate them out.
Okay, the rotation is for weekends?
Yes,
Okay.
rotations for the weekends to pick up trash on the beach. And when one goes on vacation, just like I just had one that his wife had a baby, he was out 2 weeks. They only left me 2 guys, and I had one that had to do some doctor's appointments. They only left me with 1. It's just me and 1 more, and all I had was Cindy in the office here. That was it. That's all I had.
Couldn't Cindy drive the tractor?
So you can't drive a car.
I haven't tried that. I don't know if I want to try that.
Order the tractor.
So it sort of puts me in a bind sometime when I want to get projects done.
So you and John could share this?
Yeah, it's like we do now. When he needs somebody, he comes to me and asks me, and we work it out to where he can get his jobs done too. We work back and forth with personnel.
Okay, back to John. Would this eliminate your need for one of the two people?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
they've already internally done what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Both of them wanted two people before, and we internally settled on one each and a shared
yes.
would be presented.
Which is listed under the stormwater personnel. The request on that page.
Yeah, the maintenance worker one on the stormwater personnel was already listed to be shared across the board for both,
Yes.
in addition to this, as a possibility. But yeah, no, we've already internally whittled down.
Okay, I don't have any more questions on it, just,
Okay.
sounds like we're gonna need to have a serious discussion with you overall, with all the new positions that are being
Yeah,
contemplated.
let's wait till tomorrow as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Again, reminder, this is a take it in, and for reminder for anybody watching at home or watching later, these are not commitments, these are requests, these are what we think will benefit the overall health of the community and the town. And it's up to y'all to make a determination whether, you know, we want to proceed or not, but not to make that decision today, not to commit, not to discourage either. But just take it in, because we'll give you the budget books tomorrow for y'all, to then get your fully comprehensive look at the whole town after you've heard all the requests. And then on next Wednesday, that's when we'll start those heavy conversations. I'm sorry, next Tuesday.
Tuesday.
So, you know, just,
Yeah.
and since we didn't get to do that at the beginning of the meeting, just for anybody watching at home.
Let me ask you this. On this, you've got the equipment operator. With that being said, do you have something on the daily that you would need an equipment operator for? Or could that go back and be, with the one you sharing, could we maybe aim that to that? Especially if we went to having that excavator, we would need somebody that could run it. If that position was used as that split position, would that allow you to hire just a regular maintenance guy? I mean, a regular public works guy? Instead of it having to be this? I mean, the one, if there was a shared person, would it not be best to make him be the operator where he can help you with the machinery and you? Or do you have so much every day that you would need somebody directly every day for that?
I don't need what you say, somebody, an operator every day, because right now we're working on the walkways, right now. But with John, if he has a job that he needs to get done, with that machine, with an operator, yeah, he could use it more than but I need an operator for my equipment when I need to work on stuff. But with the tracker, with him, we can put somebody out there cleaning the ditches out or mowing ditches out constantly. I can keep using them for cutting back the walkways out there. Out there, we're using it, in between the houses. So there's multiple ways that can be done.
So that position there basically could benefit both y'all, and then you just have a regular guy that helps you that's not the equipment guy, because you'll have that with that, correct?
Yes,
Well, at the same time, I think what
yeah,
Dustin also just mentioned, though, he does have enough work where if Jerry's with John, that leaves Dustin having to do
Yeah.
dual role of equipment operator and his administration responsibilities. So I know what you're getting at, but the
It is.
reason Mr. Todd was moved over was that we could keep him here.
Yeah,
Um,
most definitely.
Because even though equipment operator is the title, they still do a lot of manual labor in
yes,
Public Works. It's not just sitting in the cab of the equipment and operating it. That's not all they do.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, with John putting in for stormwater, putting in for traffic, if we hired that extra position where it's like it's listed as John, you know, he has the one and then he has the other, that person specifically would be the equipment operator that would have this extra things where he could be used in both, to help both in that area. Where the other guy that you handled, you said he's actually asking for two.
He's
Correct.
asking for an additional person, but
And then the one
I see where the
shared.
confusion is. He's asking for one person,
yeah, one person.
I see that.
but he's also asking for y'all to budget a classification for equipment operator. So we would have two equipment operators,
So two
And-
equipment operators.
Yeah.
That's what I'm.
Yeah.
So Jerry's right now is a
That's-
equipment operator.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jerry is.
because what we did move was the equipment operator position out of there.
Okay.
But I see where the confusion is coming from. He's not asking for
Yeah, right.
two,
No.
he's asking for one person but the availability of one new job as well.
Okay.
What would happen most likely is we probably would hopefully promote from within and still just hire a maintenance worker.
Yeah.
But,
Like you said.
the classification would still be equipment operator, but they still do a lot of manual labor as well. And as John alluded to earlier, one of his positions isn't a maintenance worker that he's asking for, it's basically his successor
Yeah.
in the future. So there's some,
Did y'all get the, job description in your packet?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
all right.
What's-
Next up.
What's,
Keep going.
your truck.
truck? The current truck is a 2008, four-door. It's a crew cab, four-wheel drive, and I would like to replace it. And it has 179,000 miles, 500 miles on that. I'd like to replace it with another four-door crew cab, four-wheel drive, for 36,600, and that comes with Strohs, bed liners, everything on it already set up. And this is from the state, on the state contract from them on this. Even though this is also the truck that the roll cart attendant uses, so even though there's a lot of miles on it, there's also a lot of run time on the motor because it's sitting there idling, moving trash cans, putting them back. And also this is the same truck that if a state agency would come down, like I took FEMA around, National Weather Service down, this is the truck that I would take them around in to show them the damage or anything they wanted to see.
Well, when you take those people around, you definitely want to take them around in an old beat-up truck.
No.
You don't want to show off a new truck. But I think one of the things that this does is, again, show, you know, for the town, we have a lot of vehicles, and so we kind of need to integrate our whole vehicle demands into a planning program, not just by departments. This one sounds like it needed to be replaced a while back, but that's still running though, right?
Yeah, it's still running,
Yeah.
but it could be function, done with me, but also into another department for a limited time if it needs to.
What are your maintenance costs on your 12-year-old truck?
Just service, $35, $40. There's been no, what you say, really no maintenance to this truck. No motor work, no transmission, no full drive. It's worked very well. It's lasted a right good while with limited amount of maintenance done to it. Just servicing. It's been a really good truck.
So that's something we could possibly pass over to John where he's talking.
That or I think the fire department is also digging for it also.
I'm good. All right.
Yeah. Paving. In front of you is a list of streets that I recommend for paving for the 2021 budget season. That's Planter Ridge, Surrey Court, Oxcart Place, Bermuda Walk, Forest Walk, Discovery Lake Drive, and Duncan Court to be paved. About $400,000. 142 of it will come out of Powell Bill, and 258 will come out of streets department. So this is a split thing between, with all the Powell Bill money actually is going all towards paving in this.
This is just the resurfacing,
It's just resurfacing,
not milling?
no milling, nothing. It's just resurfacing of the roads. These roads is basically they held up pretty well, but it's time to pave these because there's original roads in Sea-Trail that was put in back in probably in the mid-90s that these were put in.
They've never been repaved since then?
They've never been paved since then.
Are all these roads that we just recently took over from Sea-Trail?
No, we've had them ever since probably the mid-90s.
Okay, so,
No, the
This
roads
is
we
older.
took over, they were required to resurface and bring up.
Yeah.
Before we took them over.
okay,
That's right.
good, good.
Where's Deacon Court?
It's off of Discovery Lake. Go down Crooked Gully, hang on to, take a right on, if you come off of Georgetown, turn on Crooked Gully, take the first road to your right. That'd be Discovery Lake, and first road to your left.
Thank you.
Do you? What is sort of, you know, some of the different roads, different places last longer than others, don't they? Or,
Yeah.
so how do you go about making this assessment, which one we needs to do?
I go out and I look to see how bad it's cracked, how bad it's alligated. That's just what it is. It's that's the way I look at it. Or how many potholes has been fixed in the road. It's just a deterioration of the road, the way I look at it.
Okay, and you do this evaluation every year?
I do this evaluation every year. Right now, we're in good shape, actually, because of, after the sewer was put in, we done a lot of serious paving after the sewer was put in. Like all the roads on the island's been paved, Oyster Bay's all been paved, except for, the colony, but it's fixing to get paved here shortly. That's, when it gets back. So there's been a lot of paving that's been taken on after the sewer was put in. So we're actually in pretty good shape with the roads.
And
Yeah,
that
we
POW bill, the 142, that's our annual allocation from the POW bill?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it is.
Okay.
And that'll fluctuate slightly, but not
Yeah.
significantly.
Did our allocation go up with the acquisition of those roads last year from Sea Trail?
I don't know. I don't know if that's been factored into this.
It won't, so let's see, we took them in this year or late last year?
This past
Can't
fall?
remember. It's usually a year apart before you notice,
Yes.
anything, but even if we do get an increase from it, like, again, I said, it's not significant all the time, and plus, it's still variable based on what the state doles out. So even, we could still take all the roads over, and that would increase how much we get from POW bill, but if they don't dole out as much POW bill as they would, then we'll still only get modest amounts.
We went from 39 to 42 miles of roads. And we took them over. Anything else on the paving?
I'm good, thank you.
What we got next? Oh. Also, I'd like to look at to develop a multi-year resurfacing plan, to bring in an engineer firm to just look over the roads and give me their recommendations on the roads, and just develop a plan for us for in the future on the maintenance of the roads also. I'm not seeing anything, or still waiting on one proposal to come back, but it's not to exceed over 10,000 what I'm looking for. Over that, to put a plan together for a multi-year resurfacing for the town here.
And this will allow us to better plan for a CIP, put
Yeah.
money away for this type of infrastructure. But also, right now, currently Dustin's checking, visible stuff. This will take in effect, road base, which, we're not able to see ourselves, but
Yeah, they'll be able to do a surface, look at it, and do an analysis with a machine. They come in and look at it also.
let us know which roads need to be milled down and redone,
Yeah.
as opposed to just resurfacing.
The dump trailer. The dump trailer that we had was purchased probably back in 2010, about 10 years old now. It's the one that you see out on the beach that we got hooked up to the tractor, that we pick up the trash up with. Also, we use it for other things also. The haul wood off the beach that we need to when we clean up. It's getting a little old, getting a little rusted on the bottom and stuff, so I like to replace it with a newer one, a little bit bigger one. It's the same width, about 8 foot across, or 7.5 to 8 foot across, but it's just, there's 14 foot long, where the old one that we got now is 12 foot long. So it will give me a capacity to hold a little bit more and stay on the beach longer to pick up the trash, and it'll save us some time from running on and off the beach when we get a full load. Because when the trailer gets full, we have to come off and go back. So this will give us time to stay out there longer and pick up the trash off the beach and get off. Save a lot of trips. to and from.
Is this the only thing that the trailer's used for?
No, we've used it for, like I said, haul wood off when we tear walkways out. We've used it to haul dirt. If, we need to haul somewhere, rocks. Just depends if we can't get the dump truck, so there are multiple uses for this that we used it for, just not trash.
What would you do with the old one?
Surplus it. That's surplus.
You've, you're looking for a trailer made, it's called a homesteader?
Yeah, it's called a homesteader. It's electric, it's battery powered hydraulic system, just like we have now. It's the same setup we have, but it's just a bigger trailer than one we got now.
I see you, looks like you got the price from one dealer.
Yes,
Are there other dealers around?
there are, but I can look around if you want me to.
I just think that would be a good idea.
Okay, I can do that.
Compare prices.
Okay,
For our purchasing policy, before any purchase like that is made, we would have 3.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll look for that. Let's see. The bathroom that is located in the gazebo parking lot, that is next to Main Street, I recommend about replacing it this year, this coming year. Still about, the cost about $55,000. This is to replace the one at Main Street, the one that sits there in that corner of the gazebo parking lot.
We just replaced the one at the gazebo, didn't we?
Yes.
This past year.
Coming in.
Yeah, it's on order right now.
It's on order now?
Yep,
Okay.
yes,
So at least this one would stagger it 1 year?
yes, it will.
Yeah.
'Cause I would order it the first of the year and it'd be here next summer. Won't make it this summer, it'd be next summer. So it was staggered a year, yes.
So is this the
Did-
one that you're looking for, that's got showers in it and things?
No, don't have showers. It's got, that's your stalls that's in there.
Oh, it says restroom shower combination.
Well, it's not don't have a shower in this. They do showers, this Comfort of Homes do restroom showers and other facilities that they build. It's just what they do. But it's not don't have a shower in this. It just has the men, the women, and the ADA handy, restroom in it, just like we have now. Same setup. The only difference is that we're looking at, and we made a little change was, it have flush urinals in them instead of the cartridges that we have now.
And that doesn't significantly, change the price, right?
No, that's the price it is now, let's see on the next page. But the 55 is help hook it up to the sewer, put pipes in, the electrical that would have to be wired up to it also will help cover that. And the water had to be hooked up to it also.
How old was the one that we replaced, that we're replacing?
At the same time, we bought them at the same time.
Okay, so,
Yeah, we felt we could get another year out of this one.
Yeah.
Instead of having to buy both last year.
yeah, no, that's good. Now, because they're used heavily for tourism and that, does accommodation tax pay for
Yes.
these?
Yes. Okay.
I don't have any other questions there.
Okay. The beach access projects I'm proposing next year, is for 1602 to be totally rebuilt, and that's on the east end. And 1702 is a total rebuild, and that's also on the east end. Also taking 1502 and upgrading it to an ADA ramp on that end
And we're applying for grant monies to assist with that one.
Yes, to help, to put one on the east end. And take 12th and 6th and rebuild and extend out on the end of it. Right now, the curtain, we have to keep the steps dug out right now to, for the sand blowing in on them. So we'd just like to take them out over the frontal dune. And, so they won't have to keep digging them out like we do. Roughly about $100,000 to rebuild.
And that uses DPW labor,
Yes, it does.
not contracts?
Yeah.
Well,
Or-
and this isn't against Dustin, the ADA one we may have to go
Yeah.
out for. Just to make sure everything's compliant and have someone else be on the hook for the, angles.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there easement issues with the
With the-
ADA ramp one?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're, just gonna sit down and talk to the neighboring property owners to see if they'd be willing to dedicate over some easement at the end of the project and more at the end, but some along the sides, so we can widen out, so, make access a little bit easier.
What's the location of
Yeah.
this?
1414 and 1502, it's the 1400 block
So
access.
the one that comes right off 15th Street? isn't
Yes,
it? Yeah.
basically.
Okay.
And, essentially, we need to have another, accessible access towards that end of the island, because we're going over half a mile from the last one. If we don't, we have to, FEMA really wants us to have one every half mile. But we're looking at grant funds to help offset the engineering and, acquisition. If we have to do any kind of property acquisition, we're hoping instead that they'd be willing just to give us an easement and donate it, instead of us having to purchase the
Yeah.
easement.
So by doing ADA compliant means no steps, it'll be a ramp all the
That's
way
right.
down?
100% ramp up on 100% ramp down.
Well,
Yes.
that'd be a selling point to the property owners adjacent to it.
It'd be zigzagged at the end. You may have to do concrete or some other type of,
In
Ramp.
between the houses, yeah.
Yeah. Have to be widened too, wouldn't it?
yeah, that's,
Yes.
Yeah,
yeah, we're
that's-
thinking, what, 2.5 feet on each side?
2.5 will give us 10 foot all the way out if we done 2.5 on each side.
And then an extra 10 feet or so at the end of it to allow for the,
Yeah.
Spot.
Those are the easements you're talking?
Yeah.
2.5 foot easement, but
Yeah.
the walkway itself would have to be widened
yep.
to be ADA compliant, yeah? Okay.
Okay, right now it's about 4, we'd have to go 5 or 6 foot wide to get us there.
And the state has money for this type of thing, so we're gonna put our names in the pot.
Good.
Wasn't the 12th Street walkway recently rebuilt?
12th Street, yes. We redone it not, probably about 2-3 years ago. We rebuilt it, but, the sand, it's, has took over the end of it.
Okay.
And we had to go, last year we had to go out there and keep digging it out.
And the
They can't
state's
bear it.
recently changed its rules to allow us to go a little bit further out,
Right.
Okay.
which will give him the space he needs to, just the end of the ramp, not the whole walkway, just the end of the walkway.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just be improved.
the state now allows us to go, when we've established, they come out and establish the toe of the dune for me. So we go from, we go 6 foot out past the toe of the dune, they'll allow us to go now.
Okay.
When we did 12th Street, it had to go to the toe of the dune, didn't it?
We had to stay behind the toe of the dune.
Stay behind the toe, so that's why we got some of these problems.
Right, now they allow, so now I'm building them out to pass where we can get past the 6 foot like they say now, that we were able to do.
Do you have an idea what the life cycle is of a walkway without a hurricane tearing it apart?
There's some out there that's over 20 years old. 40th Street was built back in the mid, or late 80s when it was built. 2008, we refurbished it. Basically, we just flipped the boards over. Like some of them.
Yeah.
Some of them we threw them away, but a lot of them, we just flipped them over and kept right on going. So, yeah, there's,
Good.
so you can get 20 year plus out of them.
More questions?
No.
Thank you, Dustin.
Thank you.
All right, as I said, tomorrow we'll do fire, police, beach patrol, and then give you all your books.
So we're gonna call for a
Okay.
recess.
Right, call for a recess until tomorrow at 9.
Tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
I move we recess.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed.
Thank you to all the department heads.
Thank you.
Good job.